Council meeting October 28, 2024. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Here.
Salvia. Here. Hauser.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
King. Here. Sage.
Here.
Trent.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening. And the reason the council chambers are a little smaller tonight is because we are having early voting here. So we urge everybody to get out and vote if they can. So first we have public comment.
I don't know.
Are these working?
Check,
Hello?
check.
Hear us?
No,
No?
They're not on.
no.
Well, we'll have a quicker council meeting then.
Now are they working? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, they're working now.
All good? All right. All right, on to public comment, scheduled and non-scheduled. So first we have community partner. We have a presentation from Rochester Area Youth Assistance. So come on up, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, City Council, for having me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lindsay Wood. I am actually the chair of Rochester Area Youth Assistance, following in Councilwoman Debbie Jones' footsteps as she was previously. And I know some of you are very familiar with the organization and some are not. So I just wanted to give a little brief presentation on what we're all about.
Thank you.
If I can
Yes.
figure out how to get started here. Well, my eyes are what they used to be. I'm going to,
Do you want the slideshow?
I do.
Okay, just
to the
across the
left.
top to the left,
Across the top
left,
to the left,
left,
thank you.
right, 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 right. Keep going.
Oh, there you go.
There it is,
Slideshow. That's a slideshow.
from the beginning on the left hand.
Yep, thank you very, very much. There we go.
All right.
Okay, there we are, beautiful. So Rochester Area Youth Assistance, we're actually a branch of Oakland County Youth Assistance. That was established in the 1950s. Basically with the premise, the idea of keeping kids out of the court system, out of not being delinquent, even abuse situations, things like that. So it was kind of born from that to help youth and strengthen families, give them a better support system within the community. And within the next 20 years, branches formed in all the different, not all, many different communities in Oakland County. And the Rochester Area Youth Assistance started in 1961. So we've been around a long time and well established. And yet not everybody even is aware that we exist or what we do. So we wanted to have this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about that. This just gives you our passion to strengthen youth and families, reduce delinquency. Kind of like I said, our mission statement is a prevention-based nonprofit organization. Mission is to strengthen youth and families in the Rochester community, reduce the incidence of delinquency, abuse, and neglect through community partnerships. And we do that through our sponsors, the Oakland County Circuit Court, Family Division, Rochester Community Schools, municipalities, City of Rochester, Rochester Hills, and Oakland Township as well as the school system. So it's really a multifaceted approach. It's not like we're just a one thing that we do. It's really about coming alongside families to help in a number of different ways. One is financial assistance. We're able to, we'll get into this, I won't talk too long, but I'll get into a little bit of all of this too, how we have extra money that we raise to help students whose families might be in a tough spot, and so that we're able to help them do things their peers might do, different skill building classes and such. And then counseling. We actually have a county appointed caseworker who works with students school age, all the way kindergarten through senior year of high school, and they're able to help. The referrals come in different ways, and they have a caseload usually of 70 to 100 students that our caseworker will be seeing on it's short term, so usually on a specific amount of time, and then helps them from there. So it's a really great resource. And then family education, where we're able to bring in different speakers to talk about topics that really are pertinent to the families in our community. So as far as the financial assistance, these are some of the things in the last year, some different programs that we were able to help students be a part of. And a lot of it's too, it's just really about letting some of these kids have the same experiences as their peers, that they're not left out just because their families aren't able to afford the different activities. So they do have to prove a need, and then we have a committee that would kind of vet that, and we're able a lot of times to help with a small percentage that the family pays, and we cover a large amount often. So we're able to do a lot of that. Family education that I mentioned, we have a number of programs throughout the year. Sometimes you might see them advertised at the library or at schools. This was one we did last spring on online safety. We were able to bring this to the middle schools. All the middle schools had this program, as well as an evening for the community. So that was one of our topics. We've done things like harmful teen behavior. We've done anxiety. There's water and boating safety. So just a good variety of different programs that we can offer to the community free of charge. And youth recognition is another aspect of what we do. We also like to recognize students, again, K through 12 in the community who have either overcome adversity. There's different ones that have different scenarios. I know we had one of our honorees was a gal who, young student who had cancer, was overcoming that, and her brother, who it's tough on the whole family to kind of recognize how that impacts our kids. And then others are just doing phenomenal, volunteer work. Maybe it started, I know one did a lot with human trafficking and had a whole, things that she was doing related to that. So it's just a really cool way to recognize students that are really going above and beyond, or have accomplished maybe more than they would have thought they could. And then we do, we have the fridge right out here. We have a youth council, and they often are the ones to help stock the fridge. We're able to do that on a regular basis to provide fresh fruit and meat and all the things for that fridge. Again, kind of due to the extra fundraising and things that we do, we are able to provide scholarships through the Rochester Community Schools Foundation. We offer 2 scholarships a year. This was one of the students who received hers last year. So that's another way to recognize. And these are the students who maybe aren't getting all the honors from athletics or academics, but ones that stand out in different ways that we love to be able to recognize in that way. Another important program we partner with, actually RA, we kind of joke, we're Rochester Area Youth Assistance, RA-YA, and there is also RA, which many are familiar with, but we work with them and are able to help them have this Camp Safari, which is a camp they run in the summers for in this case, the kids that have the need. They're able to parents are able to send their kids, it's like $4 to $5 a day for them for an all-day camp. There's actually busing that's provided, picks up in a few different locations now. They added some locations. It's just really valuable because these are kids, sometimes maybe both parents work or it's a single parent home. These kids would have been home all day. Parents can't afford to send them to fancy camps, but this is a fantastic camp. They do a lot of really great things, have field trips, and I'm really proud of our partnership with RARA to do this because I think it makes a big difference in kids' lives who could really use it. And I mentioned fundraising. So it is an all volunteer board, and we do have monies that come in from, for instance, our fabulous municipalities that help, but we wanted to be able to do more and more. So we do fundraisers like you might see at the fire station downtown. We have the pancake breakfast. We just had the spaghetti dinner. Was that just last weekend we had that. So we're doing different fundraisers around town just to kind of keep that money coming in so we can support our kids. And another way is sometimes we get grants. There's Councilwoman Debbie Jones with
who does have other codes besides that.
All right. I don't know.
It's a nice one, though.
But that's a grant from Rotary. So we do apply for grants, and sometimes other community partners are able to help us out too to push forward our mission to strengthen the youth and their families. So that is about it. And so just wanted to share that with you. Thanks for having me. And
Thank you.
any questions, ask Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, that was really good. I
Thank
appreciate
you very
that.
much.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm out.
Okay, now we have a quarterly financial presentation.
No questions.
City Treasurer Maggio, welcome.
Tough to follow that up.
Just you. We might ask you questions.
Nothing's more exciting than budget, come on.
Yeah.
All right, so we have our first quarter report for the fiscal year ending '25, which you have in the packet. Definitely going to take questions. There's nothing, we're too early in the year to really have anything deviating of any significance,
Yeah, that's what I
other than
saw.
one thing, which we'll talk about in a moment. So the report is pretty standard. Everything's green, we're looking okay. Most things, everything's on track. A lot of projects don't start until the spring, so we don't know where bids and that are coming into. The one thing I want to talk about for a moment is the healthcare premium increases. So we have now received the actual numbers from Blue Cross on what the renewal is going to be, both for the PPO program and for the HMO program. Currently, the employees, if they want the PPO Blue Cross plan, they have a 10% share. And then if they take the much cheaper HMO Blue Care Network plan, there's no cost share in that. We've had a pretty, especially as the prices are going up, we're getting more and more interest in the HMO plan. Will be probably about 15% or so is what we're guessing will have voluntarily taken the HMO plan by the time we get through open enrollment. And a lot of that has to do with people that are taking it are then talking to others about really what is it actually like changing the plan, right? What is it like to have the HMO versus the PPO? So we're continuing to push on the information and the discussion on what it looks like, how this is still a great, fantastic plan. It's still a phenomenal plan to have, but to where both the employee and the city save money with having the changeover. So the requested changes, regardless of which ones they're in, we have above what we had budgeted for. So the plan came in and we're gonna need to close out half of this fiscal year, so we know what our premiums are through December 31st. So this is the January 1 through June 30th is the first change on there for the 164,000 request for additional. And then they, with their talks and analysis, they believe that we should be budgeting 10% increases for the following 2 years, is what the brokers are saying. So when you look at the next two, the 434 and then the 679, there is a snowball effect. So the extra increase in the first half of, for next calendar year, you still have to have that increase plus the 10% increase, so there is a little bit of a snowball as you go year over year. But then this will set us up to what the current best information we have is in it. The Medicare Advantage plans for the retirees, we had a couple years with no increases, and then we had, a 50% increase, in the upcoming Medicare Advantage. So healthcare is obviously very fluid in what happens, what gets covered, and we continually try to push both really good plans that have a lower cost, and then we are also still working with our broker to manage what you're allowed to manage, which is very limited in what kind of things you can deal with. So that continues to be always looked at continuously with the broker, especially during this year. They've been very proactive in trying to vet as much as they can different programs, things that exist within Blue Cross that they themselves try to mitigate, also wanting to have to spend the funds as well. So they have programs that they reach out and push. So that's we've been signing up for everything that we can on all of those. So that's the main request for tonight. That's kind of the out of whack. We know we're going to have to spend this, and we know what the compound effects are. So that's tonight's request. And then, other than that, questions or any other talking points that anybody wants to talk about or dive into, and any other pieces, I'm happy to go into that.
Council? Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Thank you, Mayor. So we did talk about this a bit at the Budget Committee, and Councilmember Trent's probably gonna report out on this as well when we talk about it. But we did learn that the employees are using an app called Wellrite to track their health and fitness. And I think that's an excellent step that administration is embracing and encouraging employees and retirees, or hopefully retirees, to be a part of. Anything we can do to help our employees and retirees to be more healthy, for them, for the future costs, but really just anything we can do to help them be more healthy. We also talked about using GoodRx, where GoodRx doesn't directly help the city's bottom line, but it saves for employees, and down the road, it could help with the city's bottom line. And again, that just saves on drug costs for those prescription drugs, and it's just a good tool. With that, I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented for 2025, 26, and 2027.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia, support Councilmember Trent. Is there discussion?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
Councilmember King?
Yeah, I was just curious, can you elaborate here a little bit more to understand these changes, what it is like on a per head basis? And then also just curious how often we go out to the market to look at other providers like Cigna, or others versus Blue Cross Blue Shield?
We do look at that pretty regularly, and they do quote it. We're not seeing a lot of difference. And ones, for example, in the region, Priority Health has been trying very hard to get into Southeast Michigan. So they just bought / merged / whatever word of the day is on that. So we think we're gonna see more competitiveness, but really Southeast Michigan is Blue Cross. It's hard to fight that in the area just with accessibility, and availability, and every time, and we push it to them when we start telling them like, hey, we're gonna look at these other alternative plans, then they always come back and have the numbers a little bit more competitive in those. So that's almost annually. We don't necessarily do a full bid like with the other alternative providers, but the brokers do look at the plans because they have other municipalities that have these plans, different providers. So we know what they're paying also. So what's nice about having the brokers that we have is we can at least see what the others are paying too, and they don't vary to a lot of degrees in these.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you, Anthony.
Absolutely.
Next, is there any other public comment on something that's not on the agenda tonight? Anybody? Megan, is there anybody online?
No one is currently online, thank you.
Okay, and thank you for being here tonight, Megan. Okay. All right, next, we will have approval of the minutes at our next meeting. Approval of the consent agenda is a consideration to approve the 2024 Kris Kringle Market event.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Sage, support by Councilmember Trent.
It's an easy one. Come up and say something? Did you, and Christie,
We
would
gotta
you?
talk about
Mayor,
it.
if you have Christie talk about it.
We're ready to approve, but yes,
All right.
elaborate.
Hi. So I know that we've talked about this for a few years now, about how we might be able to expand the Kris Kringle Market, because we all know people love the Kris Kringle Market, but when you come down 4th Street, it's getting a little tight there. So with the help of Nick and with George and the fire chief, we've been looking at that area to figure out how can we expand safely, not impede the businesses, not restrict the parking deck. A lot of fun little things in that area. We've got a lot of different things to work with. But we came up with a solution. What they were calling it is a T formation. I believe that this map was in your packet. And so essentially what we're going to do is it'll still go up 4th Street, but then it'll go out in a T. So if you're looking toward the Roxy, we will have booths running up to the parking deck, not stopping anyone from going into the parking deck, but having booths there. The other way, we're going to have our Oakland County stage, which we're bringing now. Before we used to have a little stage by the alley. Now we're upsizing and having a bigger stage, so we're gonna bring in more entertainment. The food and wine tent that used to be at the end of the street, that is now shifting south down Walnut Boulevard, where we're also gonna be able to fill in a few food trucks. And then Nick helped connect us with Dr. Hotsis, who owns Chase Bank and that parking lot. And The parking lot area, just the second entrance, not to impact the drive-through, not the old drive-through, but the ATM drive-through. That section right there will actually become Santa's Village. So we'll have Santa there. He's gonna do storytelling. He's gonna have the misses with him. That's where all the gingerbread houses that are taking up space on Fourth are gonna move over there. And that's where the Lions are gonna do the s'more roasting, which are getting an extra s'more roaster. And then the food and wine will still be at the end of that street. So it will just go up to John Modetz's first parking area, so it's not gonna impact his parking. Chase is going to be fine. We're working with Nick to get parking passes into the deck temporarily for the residents who live above Chase, so that they're not impacted. Glen of the Roxy's fine, and then we've been talking to all the businesses on Fourth Street to make sure that everybody is where they wanna be. This is gonna allow us to have about 18 new vendors, plus our food trucks, and we're pretty excited about it. So, it's a comment, and it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Yes.
And it's
Thank you
December
for that.
7th.
6th and 7th.
6th and 7th.
That
Yes.
was my question, when?
Yes, 6th and 7th.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, there is no old business or table items. There are no public hearings. Legislative deliberation. First is a consideration of ordinance amendment, section 32-315, disclosure of a concealed pistol. I think the police chief is going to come up, just so everybody in the audience knows we're not really talking about guns and gun control and guns in America. We're just, it's a specific ordinance that we have to adopt to have the same thing as the state. But I'll let the chief explain that.
So what we want to do here is we just want to mirror the state statute. There is a state statute in place where if a police officer stops you and you have a weapon on you, you have a CPL, you have to disclose that you have a weapon. Also, you have to show your ID and your CPL permit. If you don't, this ordinance will entail a $100 fine for not showing your ID and your CPL permit. And if you don't disclose it, it's a $200 fine. It's a civil infraction, just like the state. The issue that we have now is we stop cars here and there, not many, but they don't disclose it. They have a CPL and they don't have ID or they don't have their license on them. We'll take it up to the prosecutor's office. They're backlogged usually, and they don't want to mess with civil infractions. And I don't blame them. They have a pretty heavy caseload there. So what this will entail is for our officers just to simply give them a civil infraction ticket, and our city attorney can manage the case. And this way, we just don't let people slide that are violating this, because you could lose your CPL if you fail to disclose. And also, any kind of fines goes back to the city rather than the state. So it's, Mr. Crott put this together. He did a very good job as usual. And it's, again, it's just mirroring the state statute. We'll have our own city ordinance. So,
Very good.
if there's any questions?
Makes sense.
Just one,
Councilmember King?
thank you. Just one point of clarification. I think you might have accidentally said 200 for the additional fine. On here, it was written as 500.
The 500 is failed to disclose. The 200 is for failing to show ID or the CPL license itself.
Okay.
So,
I didn't-
so section A would be the fail to disclose the license and your ID, and the other section would be fail to disclose to the police officer that you have a CPL. Because typically, when you walk up to a car and you have a firearm, you're supposed to say, "Officer, I have a CPL."
Yeah.
What's in front of us doesn't say 200.
So the, the two, there's three different violations that are present here, if I may.
Okay.
One is to carry the ID, one is to show the ID, and those two are each, according to subsection D, those would each be $100 fines.
Okay.
And so that could be two different violations. And then C, which is the, if you have your weapon on you and you don't disclose that you have your weapon on you, that's where it jumps to the $500 fine.
Yes,
And that,
correct.
again, all of these, it's not a penny more than what state law provides. It just allows, like Chief rightfully said, it just allows the ticket to be written under local ordinance instead of state law.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. This makes sense. I make a motion to bring this forward for first reading and introduction. Anything we can do to help our local police force continue to keep us safe.
Thank you.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Salvia,
Support.
support by Councilmember Hauser. Further discussion?
No.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next is consideration of an ordinance amendment to the blight ordinance. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Council. For the last few months, we've been working and addressing different blight issues that come up. Thank you, Councilmember Hauser, for kind of championing this. So he's been working with Chief John, with Attorney Crott, looking at best practices in other communities, trying to strengthen this. I know folks in the audience are here that have lodged complaints about certain individual things. So, Jeff, you want to go over a little bit about what it is, or
Sure.
to start?
Sure, happy to. So currently, the city's blight ordinance, it's kind of in a caption called environment. So if you're looking for it, you won't see a caption that says blight until you go into chapter 20, and that's where the city's blight ordinances are. So when you look at the changes, I kept even the sections that didn't have changes in it, just so council could see and the public can see the entire ordinance. So the changes are really twofold. One is oftentimes when an ordinance is put into place, history and then how things change over time can lead to, hey, shouldn't it say this, shouldn't it say this, and different things pop up like, oh yeah, maybe we should specifically talk about it. Right now, we have a blight ordinance in place, which I would say for the most part captures the gist of the blighting conditions that the city has enforced in the past. But you'll see a number of changes, clarifications, adding specifics. So you can always make an ordinance better when it comes to being more specific, so the public knows, hey, this is prohibited, this is allowed, that type of thing. So the first part of, it does add a few different categories of what what would be considered blight. Some are additional specifications of existing. So that's section 20-132. Then if you jump down into section 20-135, which is the enforcement part, council has made it clear that it wishes to advance maybe the speed in which blight is addressed to the point of enforcement with the court system, while yet trying to weigh the balance of continuing to work with the property owners, because we're obviously more compliance-based than trying to get the dollar at court. And we're very clear when we talk to people at court, we're not here, this is not a money-making, it's a money-losing effort to pay me and the fire department to even enforce this. And so we're really about compliance. So in section 20-135, currently there is a little-known provision of an appeal. If someone receives a notice for a blight, they can appeal it to city council, and then city council can say, okay, we think this is blight, we don't think this is blight, and the city can either agree with the violation, that it is a violation. They can say, we don't think that's a violation, or they can say, well, we'll give you X amount of time to go ahead and take care of it. I've been the city attorney for 16 years. I think one time a resident who received a notice has actually taken advantage of this, and even then it was kind of worked out. So those types of discussions could happen here, like they have the opportunity here. No one ever exercises that. If there's a concern that people don't have a right to challenge the determination of whether something is blight or isn't blight. The process is still that they get a notice and a violation notice from the code, which is the fire department. They can always come and say, listen, I don't think this is, let's talk it through. And that's the type of dialogue that the city wants, is let's talk about how we think that this is, because we don't want to continue enforcement if we don't have to. We'd rather have compliance. And then if there's still either non-response or not an agreement as to how things will be handled, then a ticket is issued and an individual continues to maintain the right to dispute that determination at court. And we have a lot of court cases that deal with blight, and I would say nearly all of them resolve either by they've resolved before coming to court, and we say thank you for doing it, and then we often will let that ticket go. Sometimes it involves having an order that says we will give you an additional X amount of days to bring it into compliance, and then then nothing happens after that if they're compliant. So it's been effective. Our district court is well aware of our community and other communities that proceed with blight ordinances often. So these are never new to the court to see. And so the decision was, for consideration, is to simply remove that extra step of a city council appeal that we think is unnecessary. If council thinks otherwise, we could keep it in, but like I said, in 16 years, I believe it's happened once. So it's not something that's used often, especially considering how many blight matters we do. So, this is an opportunity for council to consider, and Councilmember Hauser has worked with us, as city manager said, in coming up with a number of these provisions from different ordinances that he felt would be important adds, and we didn't disagree with that. And where we did find that there was, maybe addressed some other in the code, we talked through that, and it was a very good process, and we thank him for that. So at this time, it's in city councils to determine. We've had this a number of times, this concept, and there's a certain level of blight enforcement and that the city has followed. And if there's something additional, if this language makes sense to council and wishes to have it in the books, then we can proceed with the ordinance amendment. If not, then council can give that direction as well. So I think with that.
Thank you. I think before we start with council, we'll open it up to people if they want to come up and comment on this before we start our discussion. So does anybody want to come on up? Welcome.
I'm Paula Filer, 133 Grigg Street. So I understand that you're voting on an enhanced ordinance tonight to...
Well, we're discussing it. We don't know if we're going to vote on it yet. We don't know.
So don't you discuss it and then you go to a vote, or that's not what works?
If we choose to vote on it,
Oh.
but I'm just saying.
You don't vote up and down tonight?
We could table it.
We would push it to a second reading or
Well,
public
yeah,
hearing.
if we passed it.
If there was a motion for that.
Right.
It is motion to pass it as is. There is a discussion, and you're part of the discussion, so thank you for coming.
So you're considering this
Yeah,
as
yeah. We're in
Right.
discussion mode, and we're very open to, how do we make it work best for people, the residents.
So I guess the public hasn't seen what this is.
No,
So it's very
not really.
difficult to comment on it, because some of what I'm kind of hearing is that we have a blight ordinance that works very well, and there's a few things we're changing, but as a resident of Griggs, I can tell you we have a blight ordinance that is not working well for one reason or another. And there may be I'm sure there are other people around the township that I've heard of that also have issues. It is a serious issue. It is an issue that needs attention, and some serious changes really need to be made. As a taxpayer, we built our house in 2018. We have an expensive house that we built. We built this in a community that we love, and I think I sent all of you a letter stating my feelings.
You did.
So I want it to be publicly known that I don't think this is it didn't sound like this ordinance had a lot of teeth from what I was hearing the attorney say, and I'm hoping that we have someone that is a lot of teeth and is going to make really a difference in implementing and getting rid of the blight, because residents that have blight have zero consideration of the majority of the residents around them. And I think they're in the minority, and I think the majority of the residents should have their needs met as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. And that, we obviously take this very seriously. That's why we're
Yeah.
talking about it, have talked about it, and are working on it. Anybody else want to speak?
Just the packet is public, so she
Yeah,
can
yeah.
look at that.
Yeah, it was in the packet. That
You
was-
could read what we are looking at doing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's online.
You can even print
online.
a few pages out of it. It's right here.
So you
Yeah,
can
it's in the
review
packet. I printed it
changes.
from the packet.
We can email it to you.
Yeah, okay.
Ms. Peterson, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Not many things will bring me in here except the blight ordinance, okay? I'm here for private property rights, number one, first and foremost. Second, I'm gonna go on record as totally opposed to this, based on many things. So, I don't know, I tore this apart, okay? No offense to the attorney or whoever worked on it. However, so a couple things. First, I wanna start with is, everything was grouped together, number one, right? So you took out all zoning districts. There's a lot of things that are written in each one of these that pertain specifically only to commercial. And that's how it was written a long time ago. I know from the whole Crittenton situation. Okay, so I think that some of this needs to be, not all of those things listed in there as issues are for current residential properties. But I'm gonna go back to what I had written to start with before I go through the whole thing. Number one, based on comments and things that I've heard and actions that have taken place, this is very crossing the line to being very discriminatory, number one. Very social economic bias going on. I don't care what a property looks like next door. If we have documentation proving that things have to be taken care of, that's fine. You should not take away anyone's right to come before city council first, due to the fact that this is still a free country and they should have a right to appeal. When you don't know what somebody's situation is, you should not be putting it out there that it is total blight and not give them an opportunity to do that before you take them to court and have their name on record. So that's, because I could actually go down a whole list of fair housing issues with this whole entire ordinance as well. And they get enough of those already. Most of those come from rental properties that are within college towns, which we're close to one. So anyhow, but first and foremost, I don't like how you have grouped all the zoning areas all together. I do think that it should be separated by commercial, residential, and also, since we have rental properties here as well, I think that should be looked at separately as well to take care of those who, landlords, because we have a rental ordinance, and does this mirror exactly what the rental ordinance has for violations as well, because I think it should. Also wanted to know some definitions here to have this for the public's information. As so, what is the definition of adequately irrigated? Because you can't tell anybody to water their lawn unless you're paying for it. Second, I drove through town, the whole entire city, and commercial property and city properties need water too. So who's going to pay for all of this, and who's going to dictate that you're going to tell us what to do? Number one, it's taxpayer dollars. I understand the taxpayer dollar of who doesn't like what's next door, but who's paying for it? You can't dictate that and say what's adequately irrigated when you have no definitions or an outline. So does it have to be a certain color green, or it can't be brown? And we've been in a drought, so are you gonna look at that in the future as well? And then what are the good, going down to like number 2 and 3, what are the guidelines for a complete project? Because you have information listed in here that certain things have to be done, but isn't that part of the plan that people have when they come forward to the planning commission and get their directions of what they have to take care of? What I'm seeing throughout this whole thing is this was really old and antiquated at one time, but it's not mirroring anything to do with the master plan. It's not mirroring anything to do with planning commission standards at all, and it's really making it very onerous on people who might not be able to afford it, and we have enough of people in this community that are very socially economic. There's an inequity here with that, and I think it needs to be taken into account before people are judged. And I do see and hear from hearing everything that has taken place on the street in probably the past year, that a lot of this is very personal attacks on people. I think that's wrong, because I don't care how any of you live, but don't take it out and make it something like this to make it onerous on them, just because you don't like how they live next door to you, unless you're paying their taxes. So, and then this is our priority that we pay taxes on every year, on every inch of our property, and we should not be told how and when we do things unless our city government is only for one thing, and that is to protect public safety and welfare. If these things are not about public safety and welfare, you shouldn't be putting it on the onus on the homeowner unless it has to do with that. And then by all means, it goes like that. But if you don't like what something looks like, it shouldn't be that way. And I hope you will totally consider rewriting this and separating commercial, residential, and rental into your blight ordinance to make it fair and equitable for all parties concerned. Because right now, it's a very biased racial ordinance.
Thank you. Ms. Kane?
Hi, Patricia Kane, 817 West 4th, Rochester. Blight. Blight was first defined in the 16th century in England as a disease on trees. The word blight carried over as a disease on a social economic level and continues today in municipalities as something very, very undesirable, unwanted, and spreads, and that's not true. Our state of Michigan data bank says that there is no blight issues in Rochester. Our fire chief, whose department is charged with blight, has stood here before and said Rochester does not have blight issues. We may have an isolated issue, but we don't have blight issues as such. The national level and the state level defines blight as tax delinquency, foreclosed homes, property on the way to auctions, violation of real property code, which means the structure is in decline where it is not safe. That's blight. As well as environmental contamination and a totally abandoned house where nobody has been there and you're trying to track even who owns it because you can't find anything. That's blight. Unfortunate or fortunate municipalities take it to a whole nother level. What I've seen this past summer in my area, I haven't seen in all the years that I've lived here. And I know you're all sick of hearing me say it, but take 73 and subtract 5, and that's my years. People are moving in with the big new houses, the very expensive houses. When you move into an area, especially an older area, when you decide to build that $800, $900, $1.2, $1.4 million house, what is around you is what you get. Okay? To try to change everything to your perceptions, your standards, and what you want aesthetically is a problem. These are older, smaller homes. I did tour the couple of areas where there's supposed to be a lot of problems, and quite frankly, I think they weren't as problematic as I thought they were, because I saw other houses down the same street that were pretty much the same. I have seen a little bit too much of all of this. It's being almost forced, and what the national and the state level did state, and America the Beautiful, who helps talk about blight, how to handle blight, defines blight, helps guide municipalities in blight, said that the one thing that is very wrong with municipalities is when they come down with harsh codes of enforcement, because then, of course, and I will tell you, it's more punitive than helpful. The next thing we've got is the trends. The trends for being different started in the early 2000s, and you'll find this in the national data banks on blight in the state level, and America Beautiful. In the 2000s, they started with more greening, more diversity as far as how a house looks, designed, kept, architecture, arts, anything you want to call it. It's the creativity that is still left in the older sections of a city and not an HOA. When I hear that a house is painted 2 different colors and someone doesn't like it, I will say, come on, look at my house. I had my bump out of my dining room totally painted black this past year. My house is red. I've got 2 colors. I got houses in Rochester that are 3 or 4 colors, so is somebody going to complain about it? I would think what I would have to do is ask you, since the complaint started in a particular area, and we know it was Griggs right now, that really brought everything to fruition because they have a problem with the house, where they may have an absent owner. Why did not the existing ordinance then work? That's what you need to ask yourself, and that is what you look at. I don't know how free I am to say all this, but I will tell you what I've seen. I've seen trespass, people looking into people's windows, people taking photographs in backyards, people taking photographs from second stories, cameras up in windows that are overlooking fences to go into other people's backyards, which is supposed to be private and camera-free recording, people embellishing their opinions, people writing city council. And I will tell you something, has it affected property values here besides irritate people? I've seen people paint fences that aren't theirs, hook up stuff to another house that's not theirs. I've seen people dump poison on people's properties. I have seen a lot. And you know what? I've never seen this in a couple of areas in Rochester in all these years, and I'm appalled by it. Okay, I really am. There's too much vagueness and unidentifiable things in this new ordinance as such. I believe structure is the major issue. It's structure, okay? That's it. As far as other stuff, I think some of it just needs to get out because there's no way to define it. But I'll tell you, 2 things hit me here tonight. One, I heard best practices. Again, we went and took best practices. Well, from some of the local areas and the state and the national, I didn't see that. But if you can take best practices for this, I think you got to sit back and ask yourself on a couple of other situations why you never took best practices when they were given to you. Next thing I heard is we're all about compliance. You go to compliance, you're going to be fine. That's not true either. And that's why I have problems with this at this point. And I think what we need to do is we need to go back, take a look at it, look at first the ordinance, why it didn't work, and then 2, look at it in not such this broad, heavy-handed way that people in my area right now, they all think they're not in compliance. I'll be honest with you, especially those with the smaller homes, because there will be something in there that is so ambiguous and vague, the city could nail them on in point-blank language, if they aren't liked, if their neighbor doesn't like them. But thing is, a lot of this stuff was here for many, many years. That's kind of written in that ordinance. And there was nothing wrong with it, and there still isn't. It's just somebody doesn't like it. But our taxes has totally increased. There has been no impact to decrease or devalue your house. And the 2 things that do devalue a property are still existing because the city doesn't want to act on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything? Come on up.
My name is Deborah LaRue. I live at 137 Griggs. And I don't disagree with what these people are saying. I think the blight thing, you do have to separate rentals and commercial properties. I think one reason that this has come down a little heavy, and Griggs is a popular name right now, is because of the cat issue that we had, which I think stems from the blight house that we're talking about, because no one is there except for a couple hours at night. If someone was living there, so I went over to the house because I was helping Tiger Lily Rescue. I trapped 20 cats, kittens.
Thank you.
6 to 8 adults.
Oh, wow.
I helped. And we released them, and I mean, nothing harmful going on. But when I was sitting over there twice, one night, a family of possums came out. and I had skunks come up behind me. And this wasn't just one time, this was a few times. If someone was living in the house and taking care of the structure, which I do believe appears to be, let me say appears to be, a hazard. If you walk up the steps, they aren't even. And the only reason I've been over there is to, like I said, to help with the cats. But I think that's what we're going after is the wild cats can be a problem. They can carry disease. The animals staying over there. Garbage cans are tipped over. It's a haven for, animals. I think this is why there's been a bit of an issue with the Griggs Street. Also, it does look like it is a hazard. The house does look like it is a hazard, a structural hazard. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Good luck on your arm there. Anything further? Come on up.
I'm glad I waited to speak. David Filer, 133 Griggs. I wasn't going to talk tonight, but after hearing a few comments about this blight issue, I'm going to speak. I lived in a local community for 50 years on 4 acres. I had people come up my driveway and compliment me after ask me if I was a janitor or the groundskeeper. I wouldn't tell them I was a homeowner. Everybody in my neighborhood lived in their house 24/7. Everybody took care of it 24/7. There were no cats coming out of the house, raccoons and possums. I stand in my driveway in the morning and see these wild animals come out of this house. I can't be told this house is not blight. Nobody lives in this house. I watched a man come in the driveway, park his truck for 1 or 2 hours, sneak in the house, then sneak back out, then go to the mailbox once in a while to pretend that he's living there. I don't know if he's getting homestead taxes or not, because I'm not an attorney, I'm not a politician, but I know you're being scammed and conned by this homeowner. And I have to look at this. Now, my wife wanted to move to downtown Rochester over 50 years. I used to come to the grocery store, the A&P grocery store. Do you guys remember what the A&P grocery store was? That was the only grocery store in the whole area, in 10-mile radius or 20-mile radius was the A&P. We used to come over to A&P and shop, and I used to say to my wife, I'm going to buy you a little bungalow in this house, in this town. I wish I would have bought 5, but I didn't. I only bought one of these big houses, these big houses that they don't like. I spent not all my retirement money, but my nest egg to live here because that's where my wife wanted to live. Now I have to look at this blight that these people say is not blight. Too bad they don't have to live with it. That's all I'm going to say. You're being duped and conned by this homeowner. And something should be done about it. They don't live in this house. And they're putting a facade like they live there. He comes once in a while, pulls in the driveway. I've been there. This is not a lie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Carrie Briskin, Wilcox. I was here maybe a month or so ago to talk about I'll use the term blight, and I don't quite understand how it's got people so riled up, but with regards to the houses on University. I will be truthful, I didn't read through the whole language, but being a resident, I can say those houses classify as blight. I know that they're rentals and people want the distinguish between a homeowner and a rental and a commercial property. I live among all of that. Where I live, I back up to commercial, I back up to rentals. And to me, I have a rental owner myself in several different communities. And the rules that I am required to abide by for my rentals are greater than any homeowner in that community. We're held to a completely different standard. But that's not to say that when you live in the community, you should neglect your house. It does nothing for the street, it does nothing for the community. In terms of what council is trying to do, I understand from talking to Christian, he is trying to implement some additional languages for holding landlords more accountable, which I fully support. Knowing the rental homes in the area, and I know the ones near me, they're out-of-state landlords who are not complying with any, not even following guidelines for their tenants. I have questionable tenants, and I have children, and I have to worry about their safety when they're out and about. So in terms of the language, I can't speak to it directly, but I'm going to hope that you're taking into consideration everybody who is living in and around these areas, and the safety of the residents. As a landlord, rental properties are a wonderful passive income, but you can't just neglect the house and let it fall apart. The houses that are rentals by me, they're falling apart. And I think the police chief is helping to get some of those things in place. He got the car removed that had been sitting there for probably 10 years, which is awesome. But I do believe that there needs to be more attention to how people keep their homes in town. So I do support some change in language. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Any further comments?
Good evening again. You know what, based on what everyone has said as they came up, there are specific issues going on in town that need to be addressed, right? So it's hard when you make a blight ordinance change when you're not taking care of those issues, because if they're dealing with something where they're seeing the animals come in and out and things like that, that should already be taken care of and shouldn't even have to bring people here to talk about those things. When it comes to anything else, yes, you should put it out there. We put a rental ordinance back in place after the collapse happened here in Rochester back in 2008. That was put in to go ahead and help protect protect the tenants that live there. Now, Michigan is a tenant state. The state of Michigan has passed so many tenant laws lately to protect the tenants, and I'm not sure why they're not all passing down, but there are a lot of rules out there now to protect the tenant. However, landlords that are good landlords need to be criticized and put in that same group. If you have landlords who are working really hard and people know that we have rental properties that are not being taken care of, then that's on the city to take care of. It doesn't mean you have to change an ordinance to do all of that, because we have a rental property ordinance already. That one has rules, they have to abide by it. I know the chief has worked many years taking care of that with the rental, because I used to get those calls too. But I think you need a huge distinction in this blight ordinance to make it fair and equitable to all parties, so everybody understands and they have a place to go to get resolved. If there are animals coming in and out of a house, that is a health and safety issue that the city should have already taken care of. And if you want me to help you find out who owns it, trust me, the chief knows I can find that out. But anyhow, these things have to be taken care of. No one should be coming up here talking about these things at all. I think that's where the huge disconnect is with everyone talking about what blight is. There are certain things that are happening right now that need to fully be addressed, not to bring up everybody up in arms over this, because I'm here for private property rights, and you're not going to tell me how to live unless I'm violating something that is out of public safety that the chief and everybody else has to come and rescue me or somebody else from, right? That's where you have to draw the line and remember that, because that's what your job is for, public safety and welfare, that's it. And if our ordinances don't match that, then we need to fix them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, Councilmember Hauser.
Sure. So I appreciate all the comments. I really, truly do. And I want to shed some insight and some context into how we got to this point, okay? So the overwhelming majority of property owners in Rochester take incredible and exceptional care of their property, okay? I think the treasurer told us in February that the total property value for Rochester exceeds $1 billion now, okay? So clearly, we're doing something right, and our property values are substantially high. However, as with any city, we have some instances where certain properties aren't maintained to the levels that are consistent with our ordinances. And we have found, and I have found in talking to the chief and chief of police and city attorney and others, is that sometimes there's some vagueness and there's some ambiguity in the existing ordinance for the blight, which allows certain landowners to take advantage of a situation and not necessarily be held accountable for the condition of their property. So the effort that I undertook with assistance from the city attorney and the city manager and the chief of police was to see what enhancements, what modifications we could make to our existing ordinance to give the code enforcement officers a little bit more of, some more tools in their toolbox to enforce conditions that we felt were inconsistent with city ordinances. So what I did over the past several months is call through other ordinances throughout the state of Michigan, okay? So I spent a significant amount of time on Saturday mornings comparing and contrasting ordinances of other cities and comparing them to ours, and admittedly, ours contained a decent amount. I would say probably 70% of the things, but if you go through the ordinance that's contained in the package, you'll see probably 6 additions to our existing blight ordinance, okay? And of those 6, one of them is about retaining walls, okay? Because there was an issue with landscaping and retaining walls and how they can be crumbling or failing or falling, so that was an enhancement. Talked about stacking of firewood, because there were some issues of people putting firewood in the front yard, et cetera, and it was, hey, you can have firewood, it's gotta be 6 feet high, you gotta keep it in the backyard, okay? That's one of the additions. Talks about windows being boarded up, et cetera, or being broken or cracked. Those have to be fixed within a certain amount of time. So that was added. We talked about improvements to accessory buildings or accessory structures, or maybe even pools. So the way that I've read the ordinance is, let's say someone has an in-ground pool and they let it go derelict and they don't fill it for 3 years and it becomes a haven for mosquitoes or something. Under our existing blight ordinance, there's nothing we could do. So I made some changes to include pools in there and to include some ground, so that issue, if it did come up, could be addressed. And then finally, outdoors, of putting just appliances on the front porch, okay? Just stuff that seems common sense that, hey, I don't think a washer and dryer is the right place for a front porch. We didn't have that, so I put that in there, so we didn't have this debate about it, okay? That's what those enhancements are. It has nothing to do with the size of your house. It has nothing to do with the income that you make. This is all about the aesthetic. This is all about the appearance and whether or not the city is going to have standards that everyone complies with if you have a 4,000 square foot house or a 900 square foot house. That's it. It's fair, it's consistent, and it goes across every zoning ordinance or every zoning area, okay? The issue about the appeal, and I know City Attorney Crott has talked about the appeal process, so it's been used once in his 16 years. Let's keep in mind that when you are issued a citation, you have an appellate process through the district court, okay? So if you don't like that ticket, you go to court and you fight it. And let's keep in mind that we've got these 3 branches. We've got the legislative, we've got the executive, the chiefs who enforce these rules, and then there's judicial. I don't think it's appropriate for the people who make the laws, when I say laws, the ordinances, the codes and the ordinances, should determine whether or not they've been complied with. That's not our job. Our job is to come up with policy and write and put into effect ordinances. It's the chief of police, it's the fire chief, it's code enforcement to enforce those rules, and it's the judge's job to interpret them and determine whether or not there was a violation. So this appellate language that's been stricken, to me, is not only redundant, I don't think it's appropriate. C, it's never been used, and D, all it does is add time. So that's why it was removed. So to the extent that someone feels that their appellate rights are being denied, I just disagree with that. But again, I would encourage everyone, and I know the public, these are published on Thursdays, today's Monday, it's not a lot of time to digest, but The proposed changes to the ordinance are all published online. I would encourage everyone to go through. You'll see the red lines, you'll see the changes, you'll see the notes. And while at first blush it seems like, wow, this thing is incredibly redlined and it seems overreaching, it really truly isn't. I know there was a comment about what's adequately irrigated. That's been in the ordinance for decades. There has nothing's been changed. I never touched that. We talk about, you know, the other language about construction material. That's if there's a building permit. That was never part of this discussion. It's not been part of this modification or change. That was existing. All we did is looked at some specific issues that probably need to be clarified, enhanced, and updated to address certain issues that we have presently. And those are the changes that are reflected in this. So that's all I have, unless there's any other questions.
Councilmember Jones? Thank you.
Just a couple of quick things. First off, I appreciate this process, that we start with this, it's just a draft, we get public comment, we discuss it among ourselves, and there's many more steps before this becomes an ordinance change. So thanks for those here that are making comments. I agree about the comments about rentals, and in the state of Michigan, there are, you know, the tenant rules are there. I own 2 rentals in Rochester, so I'm proud how I keep them up. And I do agree that maybe we need to look at separating commercial from residential. I kind of think that's something maybe we should kind of work through a little bit. But I also feel like what just happened to wanting to keep your house nice? We're in a small town with small neighborhoods and neighbors that I can literally, you know, have a car between my house and my next door neighbor. And I want my house to look nice and be kept up for my neighbors. It's something I'm very proud of. So I'm saddened that we need a blight ordinance, that we have to have an ordinance to tell people how to keep their houses up. So that's my comment.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Thank you. I have a question for Chief Cieslik. So while you're approaching, to me, this is all about public safety. It's about public safety in our properties. And I am okay with this ordinance the way it's written from a standpoint of residential and commercial, because it just has to do with the public safety of our structures, whether it's a home you live in or a building that you have as a rental or a shop. I just want our properties to be safe, and that to me is the most important part. So my question for you, Chief, is how is this going to be identified and monitored? Are you having a whole force of people that are going to swarm the city and look for these? I mean, how would this be enforced?
Well, the force and the swarm is my fire marshal and myself. So we'll swarm the best we can. We appreciate the input from Councilperson Hauser with the city attorney and working on trying to put some definition and a little bit more clarity to things. I thank you for that time. When we come to blight, we look at blight in 2 different ways. We look at it, sometimes it's being reported to us, and we'll go take a look at it. If you might imagine the total number of structures in the city of Rochester, to go ahead and take a look at them on a daily basis or a weekly basis is tough. Keep in mind that the same amount of people that are taking care of blight also take care of rental inspections and registration, building inspections and registration, alarm registration and testing. So the amount of people that it takes to go ahead and do this is somewhat limited. So once council gives us the direction, you're the policy people and we're the implementers, then it'll be up to me to put together a plan and present to the city manager how we might implement the plan that city council has set the policy for to go ahead and take care of. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I don't have a group of people who are ready to, you know, that are standing by with their pens and paper and ready to go. I will say that, you know, when we take a look at blight, we try to be consistent in the way that we apply it. We do go ahead and use some of our own judgment based on the current code. And again, Councilperson Hauser, along with Attorney Crowd, have helped put a little bit more definition to that, which helps us focus. You know, it's kind of like, is number 1 clearer than number 2? And taking a look at it from that standpoint.
Thank you. I had one other question that was submitted to us from one of the HOAs, that there was a concern about mowing of right-of-ways. Is that a known issue, or is that's the first we've heard of
Yeah,
that?
if I can tell you that, I failed to mention that we're also the grass patrol people too. We have to go around and check people's grass to make sure it's 6 inches. We often issue warnings to residential and commercial. We've never issued anything to an HOA.
Last comment I'll have is, Chief, and remind me, in the past, I think you have referred or brought in some other resources to help people that maybe, the last thing we want to be is the city that's going around and hurting a family that is going through a hard time, or a senior citizen. What have we done in the past that just helps our neighbors?
Sure, the people who enforce the rules actually go and help do the cleanup at times, right? At one time, the OPC did some things. They don't do that now. They used to have people that shovel snow. Actually, my guys will go out for the firefighters on shift, and we've actually shoveled people's snow and things like that to help out. So we try to go ahead and provide what services we can. We've actually referred a couple people to the Oakland County housing group, and I'm probably wrong on the name of that, but there is sometimes assistance that they can go ahead and apply for through the county to help out with that. And then I'm trying to think, Nick, help me out with the community development. CBG. Occasionally, there's funding available through there to help people in need.
Councilmember Chan?
Yes. Okay, I have spent quite a time with this for a couple of days now, because I do really want to understand it, and I do want to thank the people from Griggs and bringing this to our attention, and our attorneys, councilman, member as well, putting this together, because this has been kicked down the road. Or, I don't know, maybe not, but it is a situation that keeps arising. However, I won't approve this as is without more of a robust discussion, of which I will start now. It did appear that it started on Griggs, and that was another issue with cats that has been going on for a while, and I totally commend you and those who have dealt with this. That is not an easy thing. You're sitting and sitting and sitting a lot, so I'm sure you got to see a lot, like you said. Having said that, is this going to change anything about that house that seems to be the bellwether or the problem house on Griggs? Like, is this anything in here that would cause that problem to end?
Well, let's first go ahead and I just sent a note to one of my cat team. If I can have a cat team that we've been working on cats.
Triple C.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm on that committee, yeah.
So, 7 cats have been taken from Griggs, along with 17 kittens. 6 of the cats have been returned. There's still 1 mama cat who's nursing 6 of the kittens. None of the kittens will be returned.
Okay.
But they have returned 6 mama cats, 5 mama cats and 1 boy cat. All of the cats, before they were returned, were checked by a vet to make sure that they were healthy. If they are not healthy, then the vet deals with them in a humane way from that standpoint. But also, just to let you know, we have gotten 3 cats out of the Castell area, but no kittens from there. And 2 of those cats have been returned from that standpoint. When we look at the house on Griggs, 6 weeks ago, I met the property owner there. I walked around the house with him to make sure that it was vermin-proof. In other words, no openings to where animals can get in and out of the house. I pointed out some items that he needed to go ahead and take care of. And from that standpoint, I don't get engaged on whether or not he is a tax, whether he's paying homestead taxes or not. That's not my venue or my responsibility. I don't really have a way to go ahead and determine that from that standpoint. Let's point out that this ordinance is not because of Griggs. This ordinance is because of trying to put some definition, and as Councilperson Hauser and the city attorney have worked on trying to put a little bit more definition in there. And again, I go to my optometrist and it says, can you see better with this lens or that lens? It's kind of getting us in focus as to what city council would like for us to go ahead and take a look at. The blight is still, I guess I'll take the responsibility. I'm the fire chief. It's at our discretion as to kind of what we're determining is blight or not blight based on the directions that we see out of the code, in which case city council helps us set that code, and then we try to do the implementation with that. So I don't want this to be a focus of Griggs Street. Over the 16 years I've been with the fire department as the fire chief and have been enforcing this rule. And I guess maybe shame on me for volunteering back when James Vetrano was around to take it on. But it's been Griggs Street, it's been all sorts of, and around the town. So Griggs just happens to be the street right now that you have some people here making comments on. But it is surrounded in different areas. And there was a comment about the city of Rochester. We are not a blighted town. We have certain houses that we tend to have to spend more time with. And thanks to the city attorney, the way he helps administer this with the court, many cases, the court never has to get these because the people will get things taken care of. And I know the city attorney works very hard on making that stuff happen. I would tell you that I almost am asking for my own parking spot at the 52nd District Court because we've been there so much in the last year because of the cases that we've taken in regards to trying to correct the blight.
Well, my question was, and I understand it's more than Griggs, I get that. We were talking about that. I need to use this house as an example. Is there, in this ordinance, is there anything that what that house is going on with that house that would make anything different from the way this is written up? When I drove by it, I didn't see any cracked windows, but I don't know, I mean, how, the way this, that was all I wanted to say. How much is there got a lot to change on problems that we're having?
Yes, I understand your question.
Yeah.
I would say that the changes help to add more definition, but it doesn't necessarily affect the way we're working on Griggs right now.
Okay, that's all. That was helpful. I mean, it doesn't. I don't see like the porch wasn't falling in and the doors weren't falling off. That was not what I saw. I just wanted to make that clear what could happen. But what I looked at, if I'm going through this, number 6. It looked like number 6 about the storage or accumulating of deteriorated furniture and appliances. That makes sense, but is this about hoarding? I mean, I talked to a council member, Hauser, and he said, it's a lot about hoarding and the amount of furniture. Is it, or are you looking at people's porches and deciding that furniture looks old? I just want to clarify. That's the questions I got.
So when I walked around that house, I looked at whether or not the furniture was capable, that you could sit on it and not end up sitting on the porch. When we talk about hoarding, hoarding is something that, I'll be honest with you, we do not address in our city codes. That is within somebody's home, and we don't do anything with that. But I will tell you that when we get into people's homes for other things like EMS calls or fire calls, we will go ahead and work with that resident to try to get things cleaned up. City attorney has helped us with that, and again, he's been a great supporter of those types of things. But we typically don't get engaged. I know that there's been some conversation as to whether the house on Griggs is a hoarder house or not. We don't have that jurisdiction to go into their home and to go ahead and make that determination. I guess, we do not get into how people live within their own homes.
Okay, so this is, I think, Councilmember Hauser, you were saying this is outdoors, like if somebody has a lot of furniture in their backyard, like it says an accumulation of furniture and appliances.
Yeah, so we do,
It's on the front.
Councilperson Trent, we do have,
But it says it got the side and the front.
and we do have a house in another part of the city that we've worked with the city attorney that would meet that definition of a lot of stuff on the outside of the house. And in fact, we're back into enforcement with that house again. And I won't, I know that I believe city council may have gotten a note about that house.
Okay. So then, so that was it. Those are the
Yes.
questions I have for you. Then the rest, I guess, are for the.
Yeah, not right now. We'll go through the discussion.
So that was all.
Then we'll
Thank
go
you
back
for
to-
explaining. You do a really good job, I know, over the years, and you're an expert at this. I am not, so I don't know. You know every house like the back of your hand, and I appreciate all the work that you've done with the city and
Thanks.
this issue. So my other question was, I got number 6, looks like it's for a lot of, I don't know if you have to define deteriorated furniture. I don't know how granular we're getting. It just is an accumulation of a lot of furniture and stuff on the front porch, it looks like, that shouldn't, is obviously not a good thing, in my view, to do. And then you get to number 9, when you added that the failure to maintain landscaping, you're adding including trees, shrubs, or other vegetation. I don't know why that was added. It's just a failure to maintain landscaping. I guess that, in my view, I have been encouraging people to plant more native plants, and some people view those as weeds, which I don't think they are, but I didn't know if this was a pushback to if you have, black-eyed Susans or coneflowers or type of, how granular are we getting with that? I wanted to make sure we don't, be giving citations to people if that shrub isn't pruned correctly or to the satisfaction of this ordinance. I agree with the, maintaining any retaining wall in condition and good repair. I didn't see that was an issue, but when you get to the gaps not otherwise intended in the original design of the wall, I'm not sure if you're going back to ask somebody to show you originally what it was supposed to look like, or are you just kind of saying, well, it looks like you've got gaps? I don't know if that's an issue as things start, they settle. I don't know if that's something that you would take into consideration when you're giving a $500 citation. And then, the firewood being stacked, I get that you might want to have your neatly stacked firewood, but is that like in the back? You're obviously not front yard. People have to get into your backyard and say that stack of wood fell over, it's not,
It was intended just so it's in the backyard.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay. But if it's not stacked, if it's like 7 feet, or it's just, to me, I don't know, I'm just asking these questions. And then when we get to the structure and the exterior, where any exterior windows and doors are not weather tight, in good repair, free from cracks or intact or otherwise not functioning, is somebody going to legislate whether that's weather tight? That was, you can see what's not in good repair, but I think it's a little subjective as whether something's weather tight enough. I understand, I get it, boarded up windows and doors, they need to be replaced, broken windows, a lot of this makes sense. It's not that some of it doesn't. I got 7 people who contacted me that they were against this, and 5 people who were for it, just anecdotally, not that this is what I'm going by, but I did not get 100% a positive on this. They thought something should be done, and they wanted me to ask some questions. So the presence of exterior attachments, I just wonder if this does open the door for now neighbors to start turning in neighbors. I got some, and I hope that won't be causing problems that, I know people do try to keep up their homes, and in general, when I rode around a lot of Rochester on the site, and I think you could ticket a lot of people, honestly, if you go this granular, even though I know that you're needing to give some guidelines. And then on number 19, the presence of accessory improvements that are not in good repair, including, but not limited to walkways, driveways, parking areas, and patios. I understand that, but is if not in good repair, does that mean, does it need to look new repair? I mean, what type of flexibility does this have? And then on the outside storage of scattering items between the street, I'm assuming it's not art or anything. I'm not sure what that means, but I think it's just stuff that you just put in your yard. I didn't see a lot of that, but it must be that some people have items between the street and the principal structure. And I thought on number B, if the city council is an appeal is requested in writing by the owner of a property within 10 days, if it's not being used this much, I don't know why you'd change it just to make, I think that should stay. Because if you're taking it out because it's not being used enough, I think that, why not keep it in? Because I think it is nice to have that, because we are the only legislative body, we're the only elected officials that can really have any, hopefully objective opinion and be able to come to. So, and I am for rentals being separate.
Very good.
Thanks.
Councilmember Sage.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, if I could just make a comment in regards to rental property or commercial property, and I understand the concept of splitting those up, but when we split some of that stuff up, it just adds more sections to have to try to enforce. I think the concept would be the same, that you would want the rental property to be maintained the same as a commercial property, and I'll be honest with you, we use that same blight ordinance, whether it's rental, residential, or commercial. And so just a comment, again, council sets the policy, and I will implement that policy that council sets. Just a comment for you for your consideration, unless the Attorney Crott has anything to add to that.
Okay, but before Councilmember Sage, Councilmember Hauser,
That's
a quick question.
exactly why we did that. It's because whether you have a rental, you own it as a residential, a commercial, a restaurant, a business, industrial on South Street, all the standards are uniform and consistent, so there's no ambiguity whatsoever. So your department knows whether it's a rental, a private residence, or a commercial structure, these are the rules applied universally to everyone in the city. Removes any doubt. That's why they're all combined.
Makes sense.
But of course, we will implement whatever policy council asks first.
All right. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. So I guess I'm going to ask in general, the current blight ordinance we have on the books, have you had a problem in resolving blight issues with the current ordinance?
That's a great question, Councilperson Sage. I would tell you that when somebody gets a ticket, things get happening really quick. When we start the process of the 10-day and the 5-day, we get ignored quite often, but they seem to take us seriously when we issue a citation. So I would tell you that I would ask the attorney to help me remember, if we had to take anything in front of the magistrate, I think we all get it taken care of prior to court.
Well, what I would say, yes, but oftentimes what we'll do is we'll come to an agreement on an order. It may not be resolved that day or leading up to that court appearance, but we have a number of orders that the person agrees to. We'll set forth, these are the things that need to be taken care of. This is how many days you need to get it done by, and if you don't, the city can go in and do that. And we have done that. We've done that on a handful of occasions where a person doesn't comply with the order, and either because they didn't or because they never showed up anyway, and we still get the order. And we've removed a deck, we've removed a shed, we've removed a pool, we've removed a bunch of dead trees. What's that? Fences. Yeah, the city doesn't want to get into the practice of going on people's property and resolving those. But when it gets to that point, there have been a handful, probably a half dozen, where the city has gone in and fixed the blight issue, and including removal of an above-ground swimming pool. So the city is not unprepared to handle those things.
And then it gets billed back to them based on their taxes.
That's right.
Right. So I guess that's the part that I wanted to feel more comfortable with, because I have some reservation where if we're going to drill down this granular, I think it opens up an opportunity to weaponize this ordinance. And if you don't like your neighbor, and I'll give you some examples. So, Section 5, we're adding all exterior areas shall be sanitary and free of trash and garbage. I understand what free of trash and garbage is, but do we have an ordinance that defines sanitary? And is that subjective or is it objective? So I'm curious about the qualifications there. Section 9, including trees, shrubs, and other vegetation. So the resident that actually has a native property, if you will, right? And a neighbor that doesn't like that way that they keep their yard, but yet it's recognized by the state. So does that trigger, now I've got another blight situation. Let's go on to Section 11. This one confused me. Failure to maintain any parking lot. Okay, so I'm assuming that just applies to commercial property, but yet we're making this ordinance for both commercial and residential. So then it goes on to define a common or entry area. So what would that be on a residential property? So if someone has a problem with the color of my front door as my common or entry area, am I in violation of blight? Section 13, failure to maintain any exterior light fixtures and light poles. So I have an exterior light, the bulb burns out, and somebody complains, well, that's just not, that's not in code. So does that trigger blight? Section 195, and Maryland, Councilmember Trent mentioned this, not in good repair. Again, subjective. What is not in good repair? Section 2016, the outside storage or scattering of items. So I can only imagine the volume of pages that would be identified as items. So that is not clearly defined. And then the ordinance does preserve in its current form that we would like to strike out is the ability for a resident to come before this deliberative body and appeal their case. I think that is a right of every resident and citizen here, and I would not want to see that removed from the ordinance itself. That's my comment.
Councilmember King?
A lot has been said. So I too received a number of emails in support and a number of emails against. I don't know if everybody actually read the proposed zoning changes. I'm gonna go with the fact that they probably didn't. And, you know, I do think that we could look to make some updates. I think there's some easy things like not having cars and car parts that don't work and tires and building materials when you're not doing any construction. I did worry with that one, that if there's building that you're doing that doesn't require a permit, simple things that, you know, your neighbor reports you and you can't have those materials. So I do think there's some changes. With all that said, I think we need to revisit this. I almost would like to see us put together, and I know Christian worked with the city attorney, but perhaps we put together some sort of working group with a couple of residents, a couple people from council to really take a new look at it and come up with some sort of revision. I think there's certain things in here adequately irrigated, that's been in here forever. But I think we put different, even though we don't say it, I think we put different requirements on commercial businesses in terms of irrigation when they do their landscaping as part of their site plans and needing to maintain it than we do on residents. I don't think anybody expects that every resident has to have an irrigated lawn, and I think that would be an unrealistic expectation. I also think with like the weeds, you know, we don't require people to spray their weeds and chemicals, but when it comes to the commercial properties, we do have a little bit of just, when we talk about site plan approvals, we have different expectations in terms of the way that they're gonna be maintained. So, you know, I think there are some areas where there is a little bit of difference, the parking lot that applies to, you know, commercial very clearly. And so I just think that in the current state, I would not support putting it forward for a vote. But I do think that we should look to make some changes. I just think we need to do some revisions. There was something else in here where, a structure that had been damaged by fire. What if you have some sort of, and you only had 30 days to make these changes, what if you have your insurance disputes, right? So maybe that timeline isn't realistic. There's just a bunch of nitpick things that I have issues with. So I would not support putting it in the current state, but I do support taking a look at it and further diving into this. And then, Christian, I do think too, and maybe you didn't bring this up yet, and you sent it to a couple people, but I do think you had a proposal about how we would fund, code enforcement for
Right.
this. Do you want to?
Yeah, so.
Talk about that?
One of the things that I was thinking about as well is, Chief, obviously you've got a couple people, and the idea is I believe that there's conversation about for a licensing fee for rentals coming up, and saying, okay, listen, we're gonna have a fee. If you have a rental property, you pay $100 to license it with the city, because right now I believe there's no fee. Is that right? So if you have a rental property, you're supposed to register it with the city of Rochester. They'll do an inspection, et cetera, you put you on a list, and there's no fee for that. Well, now I believe there's gonna be some traction to have a $100 fee per year, which would cover some costs that the city incurs to do that. And one of these thoughts I had was to say, okay, maybe with some of that money that's generated from this annual inspection or this annual fee, maybe we can hire a part-time code enforcement guy to help you out, Chief, who works 2 days a week or something, or a day, whatever it is, to just help out with some of this stuff, to see about implementing and enforcing some of these rules, to help you guys out and to spread it around a little bit so it's not all burden on you or Mr. Shep, and just come up with ideas at no additional cost to the residents. But if you want to do business in the city, if you have a rental property, maybe that's one way to figure it out. Again, just kicking tires and coming up with ideas to see. It's one thing to have an ordinance, it's one thing to make changes to an ordinance, but it means nothing if we're not going to enforce it. And it's kind of these three legs of a bar stool where it's like, we've got this, we've got you, do we have someone else to say, hey, let's all pitch in and see what we can do to do it. So that was that idea. But again, that's ideas that I have while cutting the lawn,
So, my only other comment too, we have a newer home. I've also lived in an older home. It was over 100 years old. No matter, how many times we repainted, that paint would start to crack, right? I think there's differences, and I think that's part of the charm of the city too. I don't want to see an ordinance that, has everything looking cookie cutter and it has to look brand new. I just think that's an unrealistic expectation, and I also think that regardless of what we put on paper here, it's the way that we approach it from a monitoring and enforcement standpoint. I don't want people to feel like they're being attacked because they have an older home. I don't think the ordinance should be written, that's why I worry about some of this, not good, repair, what's the kind of the standards for a 100-year-old home, right? So that would just be kind of my 2 cents about the way this is approached.
Councilmember Jones.
Not to keep this discussion going any longer, but what I just want clarification on is, and I think it kind of tags on to what Councilmember Trent said, why is our current ordinance not working? And I know you kind of addressed this in the beginning, does it have to do with implementing our current ordinance? And, there's not enough staff members to do what we have now, so we have to be more specific, or I guess I'm a little confused.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so the elephant in the room is somebody, the electeds have to decide, I don't know how I'm not going to offend somebody, but we have to decide, are we, I want to keep it in Michigan, Houghton Lake, or are we Bay Harbor? We have to decide to tell us, whether you hired 10 code enforcement officers, what is our level of normal? Agree, my home's 102 years old, and I just had to have the trim painted, but not because it was peeling, because it's old wood and they have to repair, right? So we have to decide, if we have a committee, what is our level of expectations? I understand what the fathers are talking about. is it, everybody's house should look like a 1.2 or $1.4 million house? Is it okay for it to look like a $180,000 house that's 100 years old? Very difficult. We're not the only city that has this dilemma. You have to set the standard, and the only people that can do that is our policymakers, which is you folks. So, and property rights, it's this wicked balance. So we've been really good with using the existing ordinance, in my opinion, to not go to court and get in brawls with people, to not pit neighbor against neighbor. We certainly, it's on my block. We have 4 people pitting against each other. And if it's so bad, and one of our people couldn't take care of their own home, the neighbors kicked in and went and cut the grass, trimmed the bushes. That's what good neighbors do. There's going to be an outlier that says, I'm not gonna let you on my property because I don't like you. We can deal with that one-on-one in court if we get there. If we can prove to a judge that this is an unreasonable expectation on bringing property values down in a neighborhood, we will win that case, and we have. What she's talking about, the second round with this person, kitty corner to my backyard, is we got him to take out 20-yard dumpsters, 3 of them, of stuff that he hoards, brings it in at night, hides in his backyard, where the vermin were everywhere. Took 2 years, got it all out, and guess what? 3 years later, at night, he snuck them all back in.
Yeah.
It's a mental problem. The courts dealt with that appropriately. They gave him time, and they were humane about it, yet, and we talked to the neighbors, saying, well, we can't do this overnight. People have a problem. So, fine line, but again, we would have to set a standard for a committee. What level is our expectations? Is it okay to not put weed killer on your grass, but it's green? It's a tough one, and we're not the only city that deals with this, trust me, so that's all I have to say.
Mr. Mayor, just to add to that, I think the premise of your question was probably not accurate. So your question, in fairness, was, why isn't this working? And I don't think that unless city council says it's not working, there's definitely some people that don't appreciate the result of the application of the ordinance. That didn't necessarily mean it wasn't an adequate ordinance. I think to the city manager's point, there are some expectations in the city that would exceed the policy that was given by city council. So I appreciate your question, 100%.
Yeah.
But I think no matter what changes, it's in the application that you do. And I do like a number of the suggestions in here, the changes, because it does add some clarification. But if some people don't have their neighbor's house looking like they want it, they'll always say that it's broken.
Right.
I'll just put it out there.
I'll say when we moved in 2012, the condition was far worse. The garbage, it was clear of the yard when we moved in what we were moving into. The city has done, I think, an excellent job using the ordinance to get it to a certain standard. It's not going to look like, the homes next to it, and I think the fact that it's not lived in, makes a difference too. I think that's that is one example. There's probably a few others throughout the city, but it's not like, the standard of the whole neighborhood.
Another question?
My last one. And just more of a statement. I also live in a 120-year-old house, so I understand the challenges of an older home, and I love being in an older home. But I'm hoping with more specificity. We might avoid some neighbor complications also. So I do see a point to that, because it does break up neighborhoods, and it's awful, and we don't want that. So if we can make it, I agree with Councilmember King that we need to relook at this, and that's why we're doing this tonight. And there does probably need to be some tweaks and such, but, so I agree that we need to do that before we move on with it, as you said.
So I'll just, is everybody done?
Yes.
I'll just give my brief comments. I think we are allowed to have a blight ordinance in our city. We do have standards. We all live very close together. We've talked about that before. My neighbors are extremely close to me, so you have to have some rules because not everybody's a perfect neighbor. I have very nice neighbors. I didn't want that.
Record.
And my idea, we've talked about this a number of times, and Christian, I want to thank you for your hard work. I was probably watching football while you were doing
It's all right.
but,
He was watching it too. Doing both.
But when we've talked about the ordinances, is to me, we wanted more tools for the big issues, the ones that it seemed like we couldn't ever get. It takes months. It never got done. And to me, the enforcement part that, we should step that up. It just shouldn't be allowed to go on and frustrate neighbors and stuff. And it's frustrating. I understand that. So I'm for the enforcement of that, and improving that and giving teeth to the fire chief. One of the things, we have that appeal in there, it hasn't been used in all those years. I would probably agree to keep it there. I think, why not? We're the eventual decision makers here. So to me, let's leave that there. But, the issue I have, and I've heard it from many people, is, it's just, the definitions of this stuff are just, how do you define it? So, a couple examples I have is, loose materials. What does that mean? Do I have a loose material somewhere on my, maybe, am I gonna get a blight on that? Retaining wall. I have an older house, has a retaining wall. I just spent a bunch of money fixing it, but, is it of the standards that need to be? So to me, it's that detail is too much. We don't want to, as Councilmember Sage has, weaponized this. I don't think any of us want that. I think this is, the way it is now, it's too much. So, the idea of we want to help the chief solve major problems, absolutely, I think we all agree on that. And so I think this needs to go to, if it's gonna be a committee or something, to look at all these definitions, because to me, it's just too much. There's too much ambiguity. It's, what's good for one person might not be good for another. So I think we need to do that. Did you have one more question before I close this?
Yes.
And you need to come up to the, if you can.
Yeah.
Just so it's on TV. If you had and Chief, if she has a question for you, maybe just, is that?
Yes, I do have a question for you. You said you went in his property and you looked to see that it was varmint-free. What does that mean? And did you find it varmint-free?
Thank you for that question.
So I met him at his house. We have to have permission to go on private property.
And excuse me, we're talking about the Griggs house?
The Griggs house.
Okay.
I met him up there, and I walked around his property, starting at the front door. I pointed out some different items that needed to be taken care of. When I did that, I looked for rotting wood, peeling paint, the condition of the windows, the structural integrity of the house. When I talk about vermin-proof, it means that there's not holes in the siding, or to where animals can climb inside the house or get into the attic and those sort of things. So the only animals I saw there was one kitten that came out of the bushes in the backyard at the time. And that started the whole three-cat process of
Triple
of working
C.
on things. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yes and no. Did you you went in daylight, so you're not gonna see.
So I went in daylight, yes.
And you're not gonna see a lot of varmints during the day. You're not gonna see
Yeah,
even cats.
Okay, so ma'am, we can't have like a discussion here, just,
Okay.
so,
So you're not gonna see a lot of cats during the day. And did you check out, there's holes underneath his deck. That's where the varmints are. And I don't know if you saw the holes underneath his deck. And that's where,
sure, there's no requirement in the codes to have the deck sided all the way from the deck boards down to the ground.
these are broken areas. I mean, that's where I caught my cats, and you were,
I enforce the code the way I see it, and when we take a look at the deck, there was issues with the deck boards that he had to take care of, and the deck is suspended off of the ground, and there's nothing in the code that requires the sides of the decks to be totally enclosed. If it's the house, he had a broken board on the one side of or a broken window that needed to be replaced.
Okay, so, thank you. So,
The other thing I
one
wanted
last
to-
question, yeah, address it to us.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to address is you talked about, a little bit about codes for, there's different codes for commercial buildings. Grass, watering, weeds.
There's not.
There's not.
What I said is that when we review plans at planning and at,
Site
our
plan
council
approval.
meetings.
So you talked
we
about a
have
retaining.
different expectations.
A retaining wall that you just fixed.
Correct.
You've got Atala downtown, who owns that building, who has a retaining wall, and that's falling down, there's bricks falling off of it. You go into that Silver Spoon restaurant, which is fairly expensive, and if you don't get killed in the parking lot, you're gonna trip and fall and break something on the way out. Their parking lot is disgusting.
Right, so I think
So,
that's an ongoing process.
okay,
I don't
because we're
wanna-
making residents stay up to these
No.
standards, and Atala's
That's why
building
they
looks
have to
like,
be the same.
Right.
yeah.
So if, one quick one, okay? That's it.
Ms. Briskin for the win, yes.
Last one.
So I will just say that Christian and Councilman and Mayor, if there is a task force put into place with regards to rental properties, I think a good majority of these problems that are outlined in this document could be fully addressed by holding the rental properties accountable, and an annual fee where somebody comes in and has to make sure that the property is in working order for tenants. I mean, that's a tenant right to make sure that the home is habitable. But the things with overgrown, trees and shrubs and things that are falling apart, I do look around and they are rentals. And so by just addressing and having a fee to take care of these on an annual basis would pay for itself very quickly. And I think address some of the problems that we have in this city. It sounds like that one is not a rental, but I think a good majority of the homes that are not necessarily up to code, you're not having neighbors snitching on neighbors over a rental. They just want the house taken care of.
Right.
So that's all
Okay.
my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if we have a head nod,
We have to.
okay. One quick one.
Well, because there was so much talk about health, safety, and welfare, and I put it in my letter to all of you, but I wanted to go on public record to say, I called the health department and I asked them about the health hazard that we do have across the street, because we have an absentee owner. We have an absentee owner that is scamming the system because he's acting like he lives there and he doesn't. And this has gone on for a long time. And certainly, Sarah, you know that he doesn't live there. Okay. He is a hoarder, and you don't have to step on his property to see
Right.
he's a
So-
hoarder. No, I'm going to
Just saying,
finish,
we don't need
please.
to, we don't need to go through.
Well,
all
I
the-
do, because I'm talking about health, safety, and welfare, and that's what this is leading up to. So the fact is that they were hoarders before they moved out. They've been hoarders for a long time. You don't have to step on the property. You can see it clearly in the windows. If you will look at issues of health, safety, and welfare of a home and what is combustible in a home, you will find that clothing and debris and junk that sits in the home over a period of time gathers all of this junk, or dust, which is combustible. The wires it's an electrical hazard because the wires can get frayed. You can't tell me you know for certain that there are not vermin in that house. Because there are holes that house, even in the vents, that they can get into. So when I called the health department, they said it was the municipality's responsibility for the health and welfare. I want to know why the fire chief is not doing something about that. He has the cause to go in and do an inspection and to look in that house if he feels there's a health and welfare issue. Why isn't that being done? Because the blight is caused by the fact that he's not an owner. He's scamming because he's claiming homestead. And it is the perfect storm. Why aren't we doing anything about it?
Okay, thank you.
Are you going to take it into consideration?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of those issues into consideration, not just the blight. The blight is a symptom. The blight isn't the cause. Do I have your commitment? Do I
Yeah.
come back? Do you?
Well, so we're going to form a working group, and that will obviously be part of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but you're talking about blight. I'm talking about now, let's go beyond the blight. Let's go beyond a health and safety issue on Griggs Street at 132 Griggs.
We will take that into consideration.
And you will get back to me on that single issue?
Well, when the working group will work on it.
On Griggs specifically, in that specific issue?
I think that's,
Do I need to get a petition? What do I need to do? What do I need to do to get you to act on the health and safety issue
Well,
that
one-
presents itself at 132 Griggs?
one, I think the fire chief has heard that, and the city manager.
And so do I talk to the fire chief about what he's going to do about it? But that's the tail wagging the dog.
And then also, we're going
He
to,
works, the fire chief works at your pleasure.
Paul, it's your word against
Right,
everything,
so-
the rest of the world.
It's not my word
Okay,
against
Just
excuse me.
because you
him
say
that
that it's hoarding and wires burning and stuff, that doesn't make it right. Why do you have the right, this guy on TV, he has a right to let him come and explain
What I'm saying
it.
to you is the
Come on, man.
condition is the
take
condition.
it easy. Okay,
And that condition presents itself, and if you look up what are the conditions of fire hazards, those are fire hazards.
okay. So we understand clearly what you're saying.
And I'm just asking, should I get back with you?
Yeah, and we're gonna have a working group, and that will be part of the conversation, is properties like that, and then we will
So do
report
you
out.
post your work sessions, and are they
Well, I
public?
mean, I think we haven't started it yet, so I don't know exactly when we're gonna have information.
So who should I call to find out when that work session is?
You can call the city manager when we get that set up.
So should I call you in a couple weeks?
So I think we should have that set up.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I will meet with, I think we were doing a head nod of, we agreed to set up a,
I'll be on it.
okay, and I'll meet with the city manager, we'll kind of talk about the structure, and then if you want to be on it, I assume you do, that, just, let me know. Okay, and we'll figure out we'll figure out the structure of it, and then we'll report back to you. Councilmember House.
I'll be on
Well,
it.
I just want to make sure the public understands what the plan is here. So
Yeah.
we brought this up for consideration. Obviously, it's not going to go forward to any type of first reading. The idea is we're going to go back and make some changes to it, consistent with what was discussed here. For the committee, for this ordinance, is it going to be members of council, members of the public? Is it the fire chief, the police chief? How do you want to structure this, just in
I don't
case?
think that should be decided right
Yeah, I
now.
think,
Oh, okay.
I think the city manager and I will
think-
will
yeah,
discuss
the
it, and then
city
we'll get back to you
manager,
guys.
yeah.
And maybe at the next city council meeting, we can report on what that structure will be
Yeah.
and next steps.
Yeah,
Right.
I
So
agree
that
with
gives
that. Yeah.
a sense of some
Right.
timing and steps, et
I
cetera.
agree. I agree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not going to die in a committee. This
No.
is, we want to work on this, because I think we've
There's
talked
a
about
lot-
this many different times, and we're trying to move forward on it, and this was, to me, a great step
Agree.
forward.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. City
If I
Attorney?
may, as to the principal residence issue, while I don't think it's anywhere connected to a blight situation, I just wanted to I did speak with Ms. Filer a number of years ago now, because she called me and was complaining about the same situation for this property, and I encouraged her, if she has an issue with someone wrongfully claiming a principal residence, that Oakland County and every county has an audit that she can express her concerns with, and whether she did that or not, I just wanted the public to know that there is an Oakland County Audit Committee, or Audit Division, so just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Now we're on to reports on regular business. Is the consideration of approving of the extension of the city's contract with Priority Waste. So, talking about trash, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, it is.
Come on.
I can set this up if you want, Mr. Mayor. So thank you, Dan. You'd probably learn a lot more about the stuff than you want. Appreciate you sitting through. I'm very thankful to be able to bring forward what we're about to talk to. So, as you know, we had our GFL contract with our operator for years, and we've gone through a couple of trash haulers over the years, and this whole transition with Priority Waste taking over GFL, Dan's been the front man from them, takes every phone call we ever ask for. Tough transition, 126 communities, and he stood by us all along, to the fact that he acknowledged that we had an existing contract with GFL. We were starting the negotiations with GFL to say, is there any way we could continue on with you at 2% per year for the next 5 years, knowing that if we went out to the market, watching other communities go out to the market, and they were getting massive changes, we are hoping that Priority would honor that. That's what you have before you this evening. It does structurally not change the contract. Jeff, tell me if I'm saying anything wrong. Same terms and conditions with only a 2% add-on every year. We didn't talk about fuel adjustments. They've been wonderful. Attorneys have been talking together to get make sure they're protected and we're protected. We both have the right to opt out if we ever wanted to. So staff is ecstatic to bring this to you at a 2% increase only, knowing what's going on in the rest of the world with this. And they've proven their ability to adapt to this big change here. We had some rough spots in the beginning, but compared to other communities, virtually nothing. And they are on it immediately. And the residents have been saying nothing but good things. So if Dan would like to introduce himself.
Welcome.
Thank you all. My name is Dan Vinay. I'm Vice President of Municipal Sales for Priority. I've been with the company for 5.5 years. So I was, excuse me, I do have a little bit of a cough. I was actually a part of our first community that we signed back in 2019 with the city of Hamtramck, soon thereafter city of New Baltimore and Groseal Township. So the growth that we've seen is similar in a sense of a meteoric rise to what you contribute to other Teslas of the world, where they come out of nothing, 10, 15 years later they see this massive growth and this new way of designing cars. We've done it a little bit differently in the waste industry. We've identified that it was done in an old-fashioned way that didn't embrace technology, didn't embrace the ideology that it can be done more efficiently. It can be done with better tracking systems, with better reporting, and that was what we really dove into in 2022 when we outfitted, at the time, all of our vehicles with 360 degrees worth of cameras. So we could see what we were doing prior to collection, what we did during collection, and what we did and what was left after collection, to take the gray area out of service completely out and turn it into a white and black. Shows if we made a mistake. It shows if there was a mistake on the resident side, or if there's education that needs to be made because it wasn't a mistake, it was just a lack of knowledge. In the transition, we took on 72 communities. We have 125 now, but we took on 72. We purchased with those about 475 vehicles, 600 to 700 employees in total. What we found on day one was about 47 to 45% of the fleet was not safe to drive. And when you go from an expected number, let's say 50 to 60 trucks we thought were going to be our problem children, the ones that we were going to have to repair and put out of temporary service, at least for a little bit, to get them up to you're talking about codes for blight. We're talking about codes for our vehicles to keep our employees safe. You go from a percentage that you can live with to 43%. We're in a little bit of a dire strait. It was a lot of sleepless nights because we knew that, and our CEO knew that, putting somebody in an unsafe vehicle while we don't finish all of our services, while that's a problem for yourselves, your residents, and other communities, that's the right tough decision to make. We don't want to have somebody check into their vehicle and have something catastrophic happen to where they can't return back to their families. So that was really that June 30th, July 1st nuance that we learned. In the period of 75 days, we got 80% of the downed vehicles back and operational. That's moving mountains. If you think about heavy equipment companies that work on the mechanics, we sent trucks to 5 different states, towing them to them, driving them back. And I have to give hats off to my team for doing that. That's obviously not me. I'm just what I call myself as a sales guy. I work with the communities, with the city manager here, supervisors in other communities to identify and fix what we can, knowing that we're in a little bit of a tailspin till we get to where we need to be. I appreciate all of you being patient, the amount of work that you probably put onto your shoulders, the city staff that took more calls than they would have normally taken, the residents who didn't see the quality of service that they deserved in that period. I appreciate all of that, or all of you for working with us, because we don't get to where we are today without that collaborative nature. So while the transition for your community may not have been as hard as, I'll just say Commerce Township for an example, where it was 75 days before we even got 80% of the normal vehicles in their community back. It doesn't go without saying that when the city manager would call me, somebody from the staff would alert us of an issue. We didn't take those any less important because you guys were in a better state. I say this, I was a goalie in hockey. I went to college for athletics, an athletic student as opposed to student athlete. But I went there and my goal was to keep my net clean. So now my goal is to keep your streets clean. And it goes without saying that we're never going to be perfect. It's about how you react to fix a problem than how you act in the initial rollout, right? So we knew that we're going to come under scrutiny for the decision that we had to make. But at the end of the day, I think all of us can agree that the safety of an individual is far more important in the immediate time than getting all of the trash off the ground. It's always an important thing, but we had to make that really tough decision. So thank you all. Before I leave, I do want to give my business card to anybody who does not have my contact information. And I also want to extend a offer for anybody to come and visit our office. We're in Clinton Township off of Hall Road. We have a 120-foot length screen where we watch all of our trucks on the roadway. I think it's important that you see what we're doing, because I can say it, but seeing it is a whole nother thing. If you follow our social media accounts, it does show videos of our, what we call the PIT, the Priority Integrated Technology Center. It shows that screen. It shows the people that are working behind the scenes. Instead of a guy or a gal in a truck, they're a guy or a gal at a computer watching the Pac-Man eat the bubbles, as we call it, going street by street by street by street. And seeing that will show you, what we've done and give you maybe a little more confidence in why we're doing it this way. So I'll open it up to anybody that has any questions.
Councilmember Trent?
So you're doing the recycling as well?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So at one point, we had an invitation to see the recycling facility. Can we have, I'd like to have a better understanding of recycling or how it works. Just when people ask, I don't know, it's like, that's a big ask, but to give people more information about what is really being recycled, what can you recycle, as opposed to if you're cleaning things and doing things, your residents are wasting their time if it's not ever going to be recycled.
Absolutely. So we don't own a material recovery facility ourselves. We're in the process of developing one up in Genesee County in the Flint area.
Okay.
But if it's of interest, I have coordinated tours of the facilities in which we do take material and work with their leadership to schedule that. So if you, again, I'll give you my card. If you reach out to me, we can get something on the books for you to see a facility.
Well, thank you. And I would say I heard more complaints from other communities, I won't say who they are, than the complaints that we're having here in Rochester. I don't know. I felt like we were fortunate that we just happened to be the one that we didn't know, personally, I didn't notice much difference. I didn't know there was a problem. So I wanted to thank you. I don't know. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia?
Thank you, Dan. I actually have an office in that building. I'm there a couple times a month. Very impressive with the screens. We'd love a personal tour besides just peering in the window and trying to figure out what all those blinking lights are. It's pretty cool. Also, just for the public's knowledge, in terms of what is this contract, what does it cost per unit per month? It's $18 per unit per month, so that's like $4.50 a week to have your trash taken away. And we all know we can put just about anything out on our curbs, and it just seemingly magically just goes away. So I think this is a very good contract. This has pricing through November 30th of 2029. So I'll make a motion to approve the priority waste contract through November 2029.
Support.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, support by Councilmember Sage. Is there discussion?
I just have a quick comment. I
Councilmember Jones?
just always think it's important to point out, this is another wonderful reason for living in Rochester. This is included in property taxes.
Right.
So our neighboring cities, the residents have to pay for it, so.
And we use that at the State of the City every
Yeah.
year for
I noticed it on the
long
check
time,
register,
right.
and it's like, we invest a lot into picking up people's trash, so.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes,
King,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you and welcome to our community.
Yeah,
We want to see the recycling.
yeah, I want to see the big
I
screen.
did that
Where,
for you.
where,
Nancy,
Yep.
too.
where did you
Appreciate
play your
coming in.
college
Thank you.
hockey?
Robert Morris University out of Illinois.
Great.
Was
Say
it
hi to
always your
Insider
dream to
before
go
me.
into trash
All right,
sales?
thanks.
He'd lay awake, he'd lay awake.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next is a consideration request to approve the cleaning and motor overhaul of well number 3. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. Council, I know some of us got to go to the tour with Corey at the plant. At that time, he had told us what was coming down the pipe. Corey's been wonderful about trying to get ahead of what's coming. In his memo, he talks about not only this well, but next year, well number 5 will have to be dealt with. So this is basically routine maintenance overall on the motors, make sure that our water distribution system on the west side stays up to par. So we are 100% behind implementing this contract. Corey gave you worst-case scenario, was, I think, $65,000, 030. That would be if everything was as bad as it could be on that wellhead. It could be as low as $35,000. So don't know, but we wanted to ask for the full-on price if, in fact, the whole thing needs an overhaul. So we would ask for your approval.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Sage,
A second?
second by Councilmember Trent. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes,
King,
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is consideration request to authorize drain interceptor upgrades at the DPW.
Jason, why don't you come up, but I'll start here by, this is the DPW had, I get to wear this week. So we talked again about in our budget preparation that Eagle has been patient with us. When we redid our whole DPW yard, there are 3 storm systems there that are antiquated. At the time, it was over budget and we couldn't do them. Eagle was very patient because those are direct contacts into the Paint Creek. If there's an oil spill or anything there, gas spill, just general debris gets in there, that's not good for Paint Creek being a cold water trout stream. So we worked with the contractor to come up with, and our AEW, to how to replace the 3 of them. 2 of them came within the budget. In order to mobilize for that 3rd one, because we didn't have the dollars allocated, in our initial guess, because it was 3 years ago, was our actual, how we figured out the dollar figures. We feel like we should get them all done right now. We're there, one mobilization, clear this up. Eagle has implored us to do that, so we're asking to have the full contract issued for, Jason, how much is it?
134.
134,000. We had 115. Correct. So,
651.
yeah. So we, in our stormwater fund, if you will, we haven't spent money in years on it, so the money is there, but we needed to transfer it from that fund to make sure we get these all done. So again, not new money that we had to find, we just hadn't spent money on those for whatever reason.
Councilmember Trent?
I do have a question. I was just going to make a motion.
I have a question.
Councilmember King?
Well, 2 things. One, I'm going to abstain from the vote. I don't know the company specifically, but they are a client of banker in my group, so just to avoid any potential conflict. But I do have a question. I know I saw the pictures of the flooding that this has caused, and it's very similar to the flooding that has occurred on the Main Street alley between Griggs and Dre Street. Is something similar to this?
No,
A
so
potential-
yours is a capacity, which we've now got figured out a couple of weeks ago. So when MDOT got in there, once we release downstream the big pipe, all your water's gonna make it there. Here, there's no place for it to go. It's just one pipe right to a river. We can't build a tank in between and store there. So totally different situation, but this is more about cleaning the water before it ever gets to that river. These interceptors have swirl tanks in them, oil separators, things like that. Different situation.
Okay.
But we do have yours figured out.
The current compliancy management of the property is into putting sacks in the basins, which restrict the water flow going in. So now we won't have to do that anymore. They'll be full on, take the gallons per minute and clean it and then dispense it to the river, and then we'll be.
Yeah, so we were kind of flooding ourselves on purpose because it was more important to keep the water clean than worry about water in the
Yeah.
bucket.
Good, so we had a motion by Councilmember Trent. Is there a second?
I had a question, but it's
I'll second.
Second by the Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr.
City
Mayor,
Attorney?
I think it would be appropriate to have Ms. King's request to
Make a
abstain
motion to.
first. Yes.
Okay, so we need a motion to allow Councilmember King to abstain.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Trent, support by Councilmember Hauser.
Yes.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Okay, and now we can vote on the, Madam Clerk, the roll too.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Abstain.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. So I did meet with the contractor today. He's gonna be mobilizing shortly, get this done before winter. So we'll be good to
Great.
go.
Keep the Paint Creek clean.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, I love that picture. Yeah, picture was great.
Next is an amortization, consideration of an amortization extension agreement between the city and Municipal Employee Retirement System, the infamous MERS. Mr. City Manager.
Joel, I see Joel up there. Anthony, you gonna come up? Another fun, unexpected, situation.
This
Tried
is good
to
news.
lay out in the memo all of the details, so if there's questions on it, I'm happy to answer questions, but the motion we're looking for tonight is to authorize the city manager to do an amortization extension for the, from 9 years to 14 years effective July 1, 2024. And I can go into as much detail and answer any questions. This has been a recurring thing we've talked about at goals and objectives. The background is not new, so.
Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
This is my wheelhouse. This is my happy place. My comments on this is that, the city maintains 90% funded towards our pension liability. If we include the Section 115 trust, which is the money that we put in trust for pensions, plus what's at MERS. So that remains the same. What was addressed through administration's really smart actions with MERS is to request a reamortization, which basically spreads out the time that we have to make payments to them because they don't recognize the money that we have in the trust. So it buys us 5 years of amortization. That's 2 more years until that trust is depleted. So that is all good news. And it also still leaves us a couple more levers that they are going to continue to review. Can we leave MERS? Can we get them to recognize the Section 115 trust? So those things are still under consideration, still being reviewed. One of my asks is that we make sure that this is reviewed by the OPEB board to make sure they're up to date on the actions and the status and where everything is. But with that, I would make a motion to, what am I asking for? To approve the reamortization of the MERS extension
Motion
agreement.
by the Mayor Pro Tem.
I will support that.
Support by Councilmember Hauser. Discussion. Councilmember King.
So this sounds like a really good solution that we've come up with, and thank you for working so hard on it. And it sounds like we're still trying to get them to recognize the money in the trust. But I'm just curious, because I think I read in here somewhere that they do allow at times for amortization up to 30 years. I guess, how did we land at maybe like 9 and 14?
It was originally 30 when we closed the plan in 2013.
It was, okay. And so are we going like 5 years beyond that then?
No, what happened is when you close the plan, you have two options. You can either accelerate at a 2-to-1, so for you lose 2 years on your amortization for every 1 year. That's what the city had done through now. So we're a little bit ahead on the schedule. So now what we're doing is we're saying, well, we want to buy back, or I'm sorry, it's 25 years. We want to buy back, essentially reset back to the maximum amount to get up to what would have been 25 years without the double catch-up, so that's what we're looking at. So we still have to fully fund. I'm not an expert in ERISA and all those, there's a lot of things you have to do on a legal side when you close a plan to ensure federally and also through the state that the money is there and funded for retirements. So a lot of these things like how long you have, why you have to get it fully funded, all those details are dictated by law. So in the compliance things, there's things we're allowed to change and do, such as fund quicker, follow schedules. We were able to manage in the budget doing the 2-for-1s back when we were doing it. Like, okay, nope, we can take that. We weren't underfunded. We were able to say, nope, we're gonna keep paying it. Let's get ahead of it and try to get this paid down as quick as possible. Now, as Mayor Pro Tem Salvia stated, there's a lot of, they don't recognize the trust, they don't recognize the assets. If they did, this would be a completely different topic of conversation. I'm still working on them with that and other alternatives. So we basically are just resetting it. We know we're at 90%. We know we're in a good place, but we still have to, for reporting purposes, for how the board looks at things, for how MERS will recognize it, because ultimately they're gonna tell us for now what our payment's going to be. So even though they don't recognize it, we know we're in a good spot, and this is just one of those things that we're saying, okay, we did really good for all those beginning years. We're now at a point where we're saying we wanna reset it to the maximum we're allowed, which is going from the 9 to the 14. And then we just ride out from the 14. And then that gives us those extra couple years at least to start working through some alternatives so that ideally, when we make the last bond payment, we're paying just under $700,000 a year for the bond. When that payment's done, great, that's $700,000. If we have to catch up a little bit or a year or so at that point, that's the time to do it, to where we're not impacting the general fund budget. So that's all these little changes about the amortization schedule and the timing, continuing to work on MERS to get them to recognize the assets on the trust, looking at other alternatives other than MERS to move the administration and assets to. Those are the things that we now have more time to work on, because if we don't do anything, we're looking at 28 to where all of a sudden we have a big financial impact, which would be, as we're going through goals and objectives, we're gonna be working on 26, 7, and 28. So all of a sudden you're gonna have this 30-year out lump giant negative. So it doesn't affect the benefits. In actuality, it really doesn't affect anything other than how much MERS is asking us to pay them. It just pushes that out. So there's not like a added cost or added additional liability with it. It's just getting us as far, we always try to say that we want to maintain control of our own destiny, and that's what this lets us do. It gets us a couple more years-ish to continue to do that.
Okay, and then the only negative potentially with this is when we re-amortize the bond, we're paying more interest over time, is that?
It's re-amortizing the MERS's schedule of what they tell us we have to pay them. The bond isn't gonna be touched in this.
Bond isn't changed.
Okay.
Yep, the bond is non-callable and it will stay that way through
So is there any negative impact?
There's really nothing.
No.
When there is a negative impact in this request is when you don't have a separate trust with the money in it. Because then what happens is you're not just accruing the liability, but when they push that out, you're paying extra interest on the liability for the money they don't have yet. Like a difference between like a 15 and 30-year mortgage, right? You're gonna pay more over time with a 30-year mortgage, but the difference in that case is we have basically it paid off in this other bucket. So by the time you get through all of the payments, there really is a net, there's no change, it doesn't matter. The money sitting in the trust, earning interest,
Offsets.
and that offsets that extra interest that they're charging you, so it really doesn't have any negative effect.
Okay, and the money, sorry, finance person over here. And the money sitting in the trust then, what type of investments is it in? How protected are we there? Is it like money market mutual funds? Is it?
Oh my.
That's this right
Equities.
here.
Yeah,
It's this
gee,
right
I was
here.
gonna
So
say
this
that
is,
one
when you
page.
see this asset allocation,
It's
this is
in
the
the-
rate of return,
Yeah, I
that's
was
the
gonna
standard
say,
deviation.
that's
annual
it right
yield.
there.
So,
There's a
With
lot.
that JP Morgan
Yeah.
investment.
They listed it all.
Do you know
yeah,
that?
it's about 65% in stocks. It's about
Morgan
65.
Stanley.
Oh, I'm
Sorry, sorry.
Oh, yeah, not JP, yeah, Morgan
Sorry.
Stanley.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that. Morgan Stanley,
Okay, so we
banks.
do have stocks, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
all right, so we have exposure to the markets.
Yes.
Yes. So
Professionally
this
managed.
could, this could
Absolutely.
change a major shift in the markets. We could be having this conversation and it could look differently.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that is 100%.
Councilmember
If I
Hauser?
can just say one thing, the reality is, the good news is this averts the issue that we were dealing with 6-7 weeks ago.
Yes.
when
From
we first were
2029
told,
to
yes, and-
2031.
And those
Yes.
payments that we were facing, so this puts that to rest for the time being, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Councilmember King, sorry to almost put you in conflict of interest purgatory there. That wasn't.
We'll show you the door, yeah.
And then next we have a receipt of the check register.
I just have a quick question on here.
Councilmember Jones?
There is, on here, there was 2 checks written for new cameras. Are there 2 more cameras that were installed in the parking structure? Or
Anthony?
no?
For a while
It
ago.
said vestibule camera and west deck camera.
West Tech went in.
So there are 2 more.
Same camera, the west is the same camera we've been talking about. So one camera on the upper west and then a vestibule camera.
Okay, so one is new and one is a replace. Okay, cool. That was it.
Thank you. Okay, next on to receive a report from the various boards and commissions. First is a report from the Paint Creek Trailway Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Report done. Okay. No, I'm just
The Paint Creek Trailway Commission continues its master plan input. We extended the public's input through November 1st, so it is still posted on the city website, and we would appreciate any input if you are a trail user. We are scheduled to complete that process and approve the master plan by May of 2025. We're also in our deliberation on the 2025 budget, and per each annual year, the member municipality contribution for the trail operations and staff will increase by 3%, so the impact to the city of Rochester will be $578.
Okay, very good to know.
Thank
Good
you.
deal.
Next is a report from Rochester Avon Recreation Authority, RARA. Councilmember King.
So I was sick for the last board meeting, but, just a couple updates from reading the package. We did have a budget meeting, this last week, though, that I did attend. And we were working on a budget amendment for the 4th quarter to finalize the year-end numbers. And this is reflective, I think, in the participation numbers, but our participation numbers are up. Over 2023, we've had 1,187 more participants in 2024 than 2023. But we are down in sports. And magic soccer, kind of across the board in different areas. We've seen a lift with the pickleball that came through. So there's a little bit of an offset. It's the camps that were really driving kind of the strong performance with some of the sports that have been declining. And I think, there's a lot of options out there, for families. And so, just evaluating what are the best programming. There were some new programming that was tried this year. A new template for evaluating the programming. So just trying to stay kind of, on top of that and making sure that we have great programming to come out. And, one of the new things offered this year were camps for all of the days where there are the professional development days, the PD days for the teachers, and the kids are off. So November 4th, November 5th, voting day. There was one in September and October and kind of throughout the year. In the past, it was only a holiday camp and spring break camp. So that was added. We've taken advantage of it. It's great. So if there are families out there looking for help for their kids during those days, the Round Rock camps are a great idea. The other thing is, I think coming up on planning soon, they should be showing, they should be coming forward with plans for the awning on the front of the building there. Okay, great.
I like the new sign, the new logo, branding on the sign looks great.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Next is a report from the Parking Advisory Committee, the PAC. We had a meeting last week.
Never mind.
Oh, okay. We had a meeting last week. I will say, Chief, it was maybe the longest parking meeting in the history of parking meetings, but it was a long meeting. But, you know, to make a long story short, as they say, a lot of new technology is coming into effect at the parking garages, on the meters, on the way they track it. You know, almost sounds like kind of the trash, you know, with the computers and stuff. So that was very good. We did talk about the collection issue, and that's going to be coming to City Council. You know, we agreed that we need to do a better job on collections. We talked about rate increases for the parking deck, parking passes only. And I think there might be a recommendation coming for a very small increase. And we talked about electric charging stations. I think we're not, right now, we're not going forward with adding those. And we just looked at, we need some new awning for the parking deck. We need, with this new upgraded technology, you need printers and phones and stuff like that. So we're gonna allow them to do that, and just more reports and stuff, and we're gonna have a much better report. We're gonna have a meeting after the holidays and kind of get a report on how it went during the holidays, and we'll report that out. So that was the parking committee meeting. Councilmember Sage?
Quick question, on the collections issue, have we been able to identify, I mean, I know we know the total amount, right? But have we gotten it down to a granular level? Is there like an offender that's multiple times?
George knows.
No, there's a lot of.
Are they all singles? Numerous?
Numerous
multiples? How about we just tow those cars down to buyers? I think after the second time, they'll kind of figure it out.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
We'll try this one first. But I mean, people should pay their parking tickets.
I think he said it
After
three
6,
times
you
in the fence, you can.
After 6?
Right, and I think people know that, and so they're not doing anything until they get to 6.
Oh, really? Okay.
Councilmember King?
The electric chargers, do we know, are the ones by like the police station, is that the only place we have in town, and do those get utilized?
We have those two, and then we have 2 more in the DDA. Upper Farmers Market lot, there's 2 there, and they get used a lot, probably
They do.
about, I think, 85% of the time, there's
Yeah.
somebody plugged in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
People
people,
have to pay?
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, but they think people will, while they're doing that, go into town and eat
Yeah.
dinner. because
I've
they're
watched
so
them
long.
do that, park their
And,
car.
and we did talk about when we do parking lots where we rip them up, we'll put the conduit in to be ready for them if we want to, but we're not gonna rip out stuff that we don't need to, so, but we'll be ready.
Mayor Pro Tem
Yeah,
Sarah.
and my other thing on electric charging in our structures is there are some combustion issues with electric vehicles that I kind of want to keep our structures safe. So I'm happy with that decision right now.
Yeah,
And I own a hybrid vehicle. Okay.
there you go. Your
So
credibility is,
have we looked at all the things that our local utilities are offering in terms of subsidy? And that's not worthy of,
Yeah, I mean, we used that before, but it's the infrastructure. We don't want to rip up our lots. And when we do, then we'll take advantage of those, but we're not going to rip up lots just to rip them up.
Yes, and with, we use ChargePoint currently as our vendor, but when we're looking at the utilization rates, it's, you know, their version is look at how much it's utilized to tell you whether or not you need more. We're still not fully utilized. All of those meters, they even said, they go, we sell them and they help us with the DTE, and even consumers in certain ways we still get money for, even for electric. They said you don't have enough utilization yet to warrant it. So that's where we talked about, okay, let's plan for the future, because as the shift continues, we're gonna hit that point where we're gonna need to put more in. Or we wanna look at other locations like Community House or Dinosaur Hill, some of the other park areas around the trailheads that may make sense to put them just because of the location and all that.
Okay, next report from the DDA. Councilmember.
Yes, the DDA board authorized funds to hire Frank Rewald and Son as the construction manager for the Graham and Market. And AKA, once they create the architectural plans, then they will go out to bid in December. Second thing was Roger Knapp was appointed to the Parking Advisory Committee. That's it, pretty short.
And I just will say that we did put that out to bid, and Rewalt, to 3 different contractors, and Rewalds were the only ones who filled out the full bid and bid on that.
That is correct. Thank you for adding that on.
Next report from the Budget and Finance Committee, Councilmember Trent.
That's me again. Yes, so as you know, we're getting ready for next year's budget conversation and for the goals and objectives and get that nailed down. So number 1, we talked about the master fee schedule, and that will be coming to council in November. Then the second thing was we got a review of the comparison of the 3 contracts that we have with the buildings that we own with our nonprofits, and that is Community House, Dinosaur Hill, and the Clothes Closet, because we will be looking at those contracts next year in our budget meeting. Number 3, we touched on that quite a bit on the health plan that we have with our employees, and open enrollment is November 5th. Council member, Pro Tem Sylvia, it's been a long night, sorry. Nancy, she explained it really well, and I was really impressed with the Wellwrite app, and Jeremy Peckins showed that to us and showed how it worked, and he was very excited about it, which is nice to see when someone is excited about a wellness app. And the last thing was we talked about beginning the process of collecting past due parking tickets, which is up to $90,000 of them those are that we can go after, because I think you can't after a while. There's an end of how long you can go after tickets to be paid. So.
Very good.
Yes.
Okay, next report of the Rochester Area Youth Assistant. Do you have a report, or was that?
I think that, that's fine, except just to say that on Thursday, November 7th, at the Rochester Hills Public Library, we are doing an event, connected but disconnected, about fostering genuine communication in the age of screens. So go to the public library website to attend that. That's it.
Good. Next is a report from the Historic Commission. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we did confirm that the $5,000 out of the Historical Commission's budget that is allocated to Greater Rochester Heritage Days did get paid. We are still trying to work with Sue Neal to get a final report, so I'll keep you posted on that. Founders Day is March 22nd of 2025, and we have selected Carol Egbo. She's the historian at Oakland County, and she specializes in the history of the indigenous people here in Oakland County, so we know we have some call to that here in town, so that should be interesting. As we start our next fiscal year budget, the commission has asked that we please supplement their budget $10,000 for America 250, because that will fall within that budget cycle, so that we can make sure we properly do the grave sites for the American Revolutionary veterans there. Two other good notes. They heartily thank the city administration for putting the historical plaque program and the Detroit United Railway book in the quarterly newsletter. And Councilmember Trent, your historical plaque celebrating your 1940 home will be delivered in mid-November.
Well, thank you.
Very good.
I look forward
A
to it.
personal message for council.
Thank you. Very
Thank you. I'd just like to say Carol Egbo was a longtime teacher in the Waterford School District, who I know very well, and her kid was in my class.
Oh, wow.
So she'll do a good job. Next, public comment. Any further public comment? Chief?
This is the most important topic. Have we agreed on Halloween night, what
Yeah,
the
well,
hours are gonna be?
6 to 8.
6 to 8.
6 to 8, okay.
We
That's all I need to
kind
know.
of changed that a number of years
Has it
ago.
always been?
We'll
It
put
was,
that on
it
here.
was 6 to 7.
Okay.
And that's when Rochester Hills is.
Right.
Okay.
So we went from 6 to 8, but it
6
used
to
to be 6 to 7, period, and then we.
2 hours.
Number
Oh,
of
yeah.
years, yeah,
But
number of
we've
years.
been 6 to 8 for a few
Yes.
years.
Correct,
Yes.
correct, but it used to be 6
But
to
it was
7.
6 to 8 this
And we used to have flares in the
Chief,
front
still,
yard.
do you guys still do the siren at 6?
No, I had to give myself a blight ordinance for the noise.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh,
I
boy.
like
Is
the
it in our,
siren.
isn't it, is it
No
in our
siren.
ordinance?
We'll shoot a flare.
Thank you, Chief.
It is important. Even though it's going to rain.
Megan, any comments up there?
Thank you, no one.
Okay. Joellen, no comments? Okay. On to general miscellaneous, Mr. City Manager.
Just 3 quick things today. Officially started leaf pickup. We did test runs last week, got the machines going. So we're now we go all the way through the city. And if you put your leaves out an hour after we go through, we're not turning around. So you wait till the next cycle, but we go through all, 6 sections? 6 sections, and then we start over and just keep going. So that we've suspended chipping unless Jason drives around and sees there's a need for chipping, we can bring the chippers out. We want full hands on deck with leaves. And then we're wrapping up the concrete work. There's a little bit of work to be done at 2nd and 3rd Street, cleaning up those corners. And then we just saw pictures, I think they finished today on Algonquins and Rock Valley. They'll finish Wingate. We think we're gonna get Ironwood done this fall. We're gonna get Ironwood done this fall.
Good.
So we'll have wrapped up all of the projects that we thought we could get through this year. We're gonna get through them. So we're excited about that. That's it.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Matt. Councilmember King.
Is there a way to know when the leaf trucks are coming?
Yep, so thank you. So if you go on our website every night, Jill contacts Holly. They update the map, so the next day you can look and say they will be in my section this day. So we do that every single day. So if it takes them 2 days to get through a section, you'll know. So right on our website, it's literally every morning they do it, so.
Awesome.
And they got the new truck.
Madam Clerk, anything going on in your area?
No. We did complete day 3 of early voting. We've had 743 voters come
great.
through. So we're pretty good. I was hoping for like 1,800 people. I think we're gonna make it. So continues on through the rest of this week and through Sunday. Most days are 9 to 5 with the exception of Thursday, which happens to be Halloween this year. But that day is 12 to 8, so. And then, of course, Election Day is next Tuesday, and then it'll be done.
Very good, that's right.
Perfect. We won't hear about it again for 4 more years.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. City Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Councilmember King. Mayor Pro Tem Salvia.
Yes, so Community House, unless administration knows something I don't know, we are waiting to be able to consider spending any money until the state tells us we can. So we can't even do any little maintenance on the outside yet this fall because we're still waiting for the state, you know. It's the wonderful thing of getting $2 million from the state is you gotta wait on them. Anything else? No? Okay. Just wanted to thank the team with the election, stopped in on first day of early voting. Everything looked great. Rochester Hills Library was really busy over there. We were organized, people in and out. I think it was a really great decision to keep it here local in our control. So great work. Keep it up, you and Brian. Thank you. And then lastly, thank you, Chief Cieslik, for continuing to put pressure on. We're talking about blight. How about our post office? We now have a new paved parking lot at the post office.
Yes.
It is not the surface of the moon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sage?
Nothing this evening.
Councilmember Jones?
Just real quick, the dates, we got the multi-year budget schedule, and I know that tonight we were gonna meet for SWAT and we did not, so I'm sure that's gonna
Is that
be
the next meeting?
rescheduled.
Yep.
Okay, next week?
Next
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 council
meeting.
meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and then I can assume I can kind of pencil in the dates that are on here, is it for
That's the only one that
January and
changed,
such? Okay, that's it?
Councilmember Trent?
Yes, so Sunil is coming, I was told, on December 9th to present and answer the questions that were asked when Nick Gatos, board chair, spoke on August 26th. So I was just going to run a few things by you because I want to just make sure I get this right when this is sent to she and Nick Gatos. Number one, that we were looking for a plan for utilizing the $800,000 endowment. We'd like to learn more about how the endowment will enhance the preserve's mission and ensure its long-term impact, and plan moving forward to utilize them. How are the funds designated and what type of restrictions are on them? Number two, path to financial sustainability. As they look into the future, how do they envision Dinosaur Hill becoming self-sustaining and minimizing reliance on city funding? A 1 to 5 year strategic growth plan. It would be helpful to learn about their vision and strategic initiatives for growth over the next few years, including any new programs or partnerships that they may have on the horizon. The executive director transition plan, as Sunil transitions as part of a natural part of this, as part of this organization is going on now, we want to understand the plans to ensure continued leadership and stability during this change, and then plans for funding, number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plans for funding and program development. The council is eager to learn about their strategies for expanding their funding base and direction of the program growth in the future. And then I added another one, a final financial report for Heritage Days. So if anybody, I can have it sent to Megan or send this out to all of you. And if you want to add anything, please let me know. I will be sending it out by the end of this week. Then I attended about, I don't know, I lost count, four meetings and workshops, but I'm only going to talk about one. It was SIMCOG, the Southeast Michigan Council for Governments conference. This past, I think it was Thursday. SIMCOG is a voluntary association of local governments, as you guys know, that works to improve the region by promoting informed decision-making efficiently, using tax dollars for infrastructure investment, developing regional solutions, and advocating on behalf of Southeast Michigan. So, it was a full-day conference, and Quentin Meser, the CEO and president of the EMEDC, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, spoke. He talked about building prosperity in Michigan through people, projects, and places, with some federal factors dollars to keep in mind. There's $370 billion to accelerate energy transition. There's the acceleration of battery tech. There's approximately $100 billion for the semiconductor industry. Has not all been spent. The key MEDC programs that they support is Michigan Main Street, redevelopment ready communities, community revitalization, public spaces and community places, brownfield programs, which we know quite a bit about, and travel in pure Michigan, and state historic preservation. So that's what they are, their programs. SIMCOG planning assistance representatives spoke about their planning assistance program. It's up to $500,000. It's available now. It'll begin to be available again in 2025 for grants in the projects such as transportation and infrastructure equity, complete streets and corridor safety, trails and greenway. Maybe we could look into that, I think. Nick, city manager, yep. Stormwater management, placemaking and active transportation, and they max out at $50,000 with 18.15% match. I do not know how they came up with that 0.15, and I did not ask. Plus, Southeast Michigan CO2 Commuter Connect is an interesting program that has been implemented. It's online, and it provides a resource for figuring out greener travel, like options of, guess what, the old-timey carpool, van pool, transit, and other options throughout Southeast Michigan. So if you want to carpool with someone, or you can, and you go to CO2 Commuter Connect, and you can go through their filter and figure that out. So that's it.
Thank you.
Next week, I'll tell you about the other 3 conferences I went to.
Busy person.
But it is getting late, so I don't want to put you guys to sleep.
Councilmember Hauser?
I'm all set. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I just have 2 quick things. One, we were honored in our city last Wednesday morning to have the current governor and the former governor in town at the exact same time for different events.
They were.
Mayor and Governor Snyder both in town.
They were.
Yes, they were. They were very quiet about it.
They
I was gonna say,
They were.
she didn't let me know.
She
Yeah.
didn't.
And then also, some of you got an
You were
email
gone?
about the library and the library contract. As you know, we have a subcommittee of myself, Mayor Pro Tem Salvia, and Councilmember Trent, and we are meeting Thursday with city budget people to kind of go through and kind of do a deep dive to it and come up with some things to present to the council.
Yep. I'll be there.
And that is all I have. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.